Welcome back. This is What If Naruto Became a Human Bijuu Hybrid by the Wish of the Reaper and gets trained by Minato, who was trapped along. And sub guys, if you haven't already, it really means a lot to me. Let's begin. Cute Bunny. Naruto learned quite late why Inari stared at him the whole time he was in Nami near the end of their mission. Apparently, Inari thought that Naruto reminded him of 𝐫𝐫, his stepfather. 𝐫𝐫 had died trying to free Nami from Gato, but despite his courage and his strength, he was still just a single man blessed with a strong body and nothing more. Gato had torn off his arms that he was proud of in front of everyone in Nami and left 𝐫𝐫 to bleed to death right before his son's eyes. Understandably, Inari lost all hope that day. When Inari asked to name the bridge after Naruto, Naruto rejected the proposal and said, "Name it after your father and let him live as the symbol of indomitable strength and courage of Nami." After all, even as he bled to death, 𝐫𝐫 never bowed to Gato and continued to tell Inari to fight. That man was a hero and deserved to be remembered, especially as he was part of Nami, not a foreigner who came there to finish a job. Needless to say, everyone agreed on that. After all, shinobi were no heroes. Lee was crying as they ran home. "Naruto, that was the most youthful thing you did." Naruto chuckled, not knowing what to say. He just thought that someone from Nami should be immortalized as that great bridge instead of someone who had nothing to do with Nami. He didn't do much either, just what he was supposed to do. So there was really no real reason to name the bridge after a nobody like him. It didn't take them long to reach Konoha, and since it was late, Kakashi decided to report alone and let the genin return home. Naruto made his way through the streets of Konoha, trying to get used even with the glare sent his way because of his mask. He might hit himself, or chose a different mask had it been the actual 𝐸𝐵. But the 𝐸𝐵 wasn't the 𝐸𝐵 but his own father, the hero who died defending Konoha by sacrificing himself. It was ironic, really, that they praised the man whose face was carved into the cliff, but hated his son who wore the mask of a fox, not knowing that the fox they were cursing was really their hero. Naruto-kun? Naruto looked behind to see Hinata. She was a little dirty and he can smell mud from her, though her scent had always been pleasing to him. He smiled at her. "Hey, did you just finish the job?" She blushed. "Why, yes. Ano, W, and did you come be back?" Naruto blinked at her, stuttering before answering. "Just now, actually. Your cousin is really something else, Databeo." Hinata's expression fell. "Oh, I'm sorry if he was mean to you." Naruto reached up and tilted her chin up. "Come on now, it isn't that bad. He's a bit standoffish, but we work just fine. At the very least, he's professional. So you don't have to say sorry." He then asked, "Have you had dinner?" "I'm hungry, Databeo." Hinata was fighting to stay awake, her chin burning from his sweet touch. She almost didn't hear his question, but she quickly shook her head. No, I'm hungry too. Come on, Hinata. Fight, Hinata. She can do this. She can do this. Naruto grinned, his sharp fangs flashing in a charming manner, which was just weird because 𝐸𝐵 have fangs too, but she never thought of them as charming. He grabbed her hand. "That's good to hear. Let's go grab some ramen, Databeo," as he pulled her along, and Hinata's body followed on autopilot. Her mind was chanting the mantra to not black out and to calm her heart. Honestly, she can handle a few of her clansmen coming at her with killing intent. She can face her father without breaking a sweat. She could do all the things that she worked so hard on to handle ever since that talk with Naruto. But once he flashed that damnable fanged smile at her, and she's a puddle nerve once more. He was so unfair. And worst of all, he didn't even try. Meanwhile, Naruto was glad that he came across Hinata, or rather she found him. He was feeling a little down, but Hinata had this way about her that always lifted his spirit up. In fact, sometimes it felt like his day won't be complete without catching a glimpse of her. So as she smiled that adorably wobbly smile of her with those sparkling opalescent eyes that she had only showed at him, he will talk to her freely as he waited for Teuchi to complete his order. He shared with her about his mission, giving a simple rundown. There wasn't anything too secretive about this mission, though he omitted the part where Kakashi and Guy assassinate Gato under the Hokage's order. Hinata was a great listener. Though she smiled, he can read her expression as she was taken by the story he weaved. She looked sad for Inari and upset that he would speak badly of the genin. But she was enjoying Naruto's narration about bridge building, which personally for him was the most boring part. But she enjoyed herself, and Naruto enjoyed her attention. Like he was the only one in her eyes. After dinner, he walked her home and said, "Thanks for accompanying me for dinner. I'm sure your clan have better food." Hinata blushed. But you are a better company." Naruto blushed. "Are really?" She nodded before looking up at him. She looked like she wanted to say more or do more. Somehow his eyes flicked to her lips. They looked red, blossoming with her crimson cheeks. She blushed so easily, especially around him. But instead of saying anything, she reached around him and gave him a rather modest hug. But he feared that she can feel the way his herd seemed determined to break out of his chest. She whispered, "Ig glad to see you safe and sound, Naruto-kun." Naruto didn't know what to do, so instead he nuzzled a little against the side of her head. "Thank you, Hinata-chan." It was nice to hear that from someone other than Minato. It felt different somehow. Or maybe because it was Hinata herself that said that. As he pressed his nose against her hair, even though there was a barrier known as the carved mask between them, he felt a little light-headed by the intensity of her scent as he breathed a few lungfuls in. Somehow, he thought he should recreate it for his oil burner. It was relaxing yet at the same time exciting. He moved his arms to ahem. Hinata suddenly pulled away, and Naruto was already missing her weight around him. She turned around and bowed at the tall Hyuga at the door of her home. "Ota-sama." Naruto blinked and bowed to who can only be 𝐤𝐲𝐻𝐻, Hyuga-dano. "I'm here to bring Hinata home. It is late after all, and she did accompany me for dinner." 𝐻𝐻 stared at the masked blonde. "And you are?" Naruto calmly answered. "Uzumaki Naruto." 𝐻𝐻 stared at the boy. He was half an inch shorter than his daughter, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was he's a boy, and he's too close to Hinata. Naruto looked at Hinata and smiled. "Good night, Hinata-chan." He then bowed to 𝐻𝐻. "Good night, Hyuga-dano." 𝐻𝐻 hummed before looking at Hinata, who smiled indulgently at the masked boy. Good night, Naruto-kun." A sweet dream." 𝐻𝐻's brow twitched, and he looked at the boy's neck and jawline flushed red, the smile on his lips equally indulging. "Ah, sweet dream to you too, Hinata-chan." Then he was gone. Hinata's sweet expression smoothed over as she turned to him and bid him good night as she asked to turn in early. 𝐻𝐻 let her go, though he had so many questions to ask. He had overheard that Hinata started breaking out of her shell and toughened her spine after talking to her best friend 𝐸𝐸nko. Then the other day he overheard from Hanabi that 𝐸𝐸nko's real name was actually Naruto. And today, what was that he just witnessed? He was staring at the bamboo pond clacking away for hours when he said, "She's too young." For some reason, it felt like there was a predator circling his home, eyes on Hinata as its target. But there was one thing that can stand as a ravine. Hyuga don't marry out. The boy will have to adhere to the Hyuga clan's law if he wished to have her. Yet somehow, the thought of that didn't soothe his worry as much as it should have. "She's too young." He kept repeating that as he tossed and turned in his bed. Although Hinata was still young, it meant nothing if she wished to pursue that Uzumaki boy. It wasn't like the time of his elder anymore. People these days liked courting each other regardless of age or intention. 𝐻𝐻 knew that Hinata will adhere to the clan's law about coital relationship before marriage. But there were things that they can do without breaking that law. She's too young. While Hyuga 𝐻𝐻 was facing a midlife crisis as a father to a teenage daughter, Naruto was staring at the moon while sitting on the swing and thought about Hinata. He was still unsure what it was that they were exchanging just then, wordless. There was something there, but he couldn't really get a grasp. All he knew was that he was hungry for more. He groaned. "What the hell is wrong with me?" Meanwhile, Minato was hiding a smile while pretending to be asleep. He didn't think he should answer the question for Naruto. It was obvious to him as he had been there. Naruto had always been sweet on Hinata. That girl was important to him for helping us realize the thing that made him happiest, helping other. And fortunately, she was a sweet child herself. She was his first friend, and she helped him a lot with his study. In fact, Hinata played a significant role in Naruto's training. He wanted to be strong so that she won't be in danger because of him. He also missed her greatly in his journey, and he wanted to get back as soon as he could. Minato knew how it felt, trying to get as strong as possible to protect the most important person in his heart. He fought for Konoha because that was where Kushina was. Without Konoha, she will be burdened by the Kyuubi or worst. So he fought as hard as he can. To be Hokage, it was less for the village and more to get her better treatment as jinchuriki. It was also to protect her because he couldn't trust anyone else as Hokage. And even making Naruto a jinchuriki, he hated the jinchuriki system. It didn't do anything but make the person affected miserable. It was why he studied hard. It was to create a seal that would free Naruto from Konoha's cage. Still, he understood Naruto's confusion. He can only imagine how much more worse the confusion would be had he not been here to teach Naruto about love. But at least this way, he knew enough to sense when someone loved him, especially when the object of his affection was too shy around him. That child was just adorable to watch. It was clear that Naruto affected her greatly, and still she tried her best to stand near him. That hug too, how adorable. Had Naruto been raised a normal child, he wondered if Hinata would still favor him. Then again, Minato felt that perhaps it would be harder on Naruto to notice due to the fact that he would be popular just for being the Hokage's son. Not that he AWS tooting his own horn, but Naruto inherited the best of both him and Kushina. He didn't know if he would still have his whisker marks, but without it, he would be Minato's dead ringer. Although his eyes would be rounder because he inherited the shape from Kushina. His son would have been such a heartbreaker. While Minato was envisioning a world where Naruto would probably experience a rom-com of sort, Naruto spent his free day the next day visiting the Yamanaka forest. He can't get the scent of Hinata out of his head, so he wanted to recreate it. Fortunately, he had the nose to find the nuances that create her unique scent. It was something he learned from Cha when Jiraiya left him with a perfume artisan. As he went about scenting the flowers sold, Ino noticed him and called out, "Naruto, what are you looking for?" He absent-mindedly answered, "Something that smells like Hinata." Ino paused, blinking at him in confusion. Did he mean Hinata's perfume? But as far as Ino knew, Hinata never wore perfume. Not only would it annoy Kiba, being an Inuzuka, but also because it was bad for Kunoichi to wear perfumes. Maybe he meant her soap or shampoo. Again, Hinata never used scented anything. She was probably the most Kunoichi-like of all the girls Ino knew. So what did Naruto mean? Ino decided to ask, "What do you mean?" Naruto picked up a few flowers, waving his hand. "Nothing. She just have this really pleasant smell, and I can't get it out of my head, Databeo." He then sneezed. "Ino, I'm sorry to say this, but your perfume... Achoo. Your perfume is too much. Achoo." Bewildered by his somewhat violent reaction to her perfume, she stepped a few steps back and watched as he sniffed and wiped his nose with his sleeve. She grimaced. "Was it really that bad? I mean, I heard that the women in the daimyo's court really like the scent." She sniffed her wrist. "I didn't even put that much." Naruto sniffed and sighed. "Ino, shinobi with trained chakra also have sensitive senses, Databeo. If you pass the Inuzuka kennel, the dogs there will howl from overstimulation of their noses. No offense to you or the artisan that made the perfume, but most kunoichi that I know only wear perfumes that induce hallucination. But even those don't exactly have the kind of scent that you're wearing. They are really subtle and acted more like drugs. This." He sniffed, and it was clear that his eyes and nose were watering. "This is just plain torture for me, Databeo." Ino turned pale from hearing it. He wasn't even being mean about it. From the way it sounded like his nose had clogged up, she realized that it must be really bad for someone with sensitive olfactory senses like him and the Inuzuka, and who knew how many shinobi she had tortured with the perfume. She grimaced, "Sorry." Naruto put away the flowers. "Sorry for? I mean, I can't smell." He sniffed. "My nose is all clogged up. I have to go, sorry." Bye. Ino stepped away from him, but he ended up sneezing multiple times as he stepped out of the forest, grimacing, "Sorry." As Naruto's chakra slowly fixed his nose, he was grunting a little from the headache that came from multiple sneezing without stops. He sighed as he walked far from the congested area of Konoha. Slowly, his breathing returned to normal. But with it came a familiar but pleasant scent. He followed the scent and found Hinata ankle-deep in the river as she waded around, seemingly looking for something. Her teammates were doing the same thing, although at different points of the river. Their Jounin instructor was watching them as they did their mission. He smiled at the sight and sat down by the sloping riverbank. He watched as Hinata walked this way and moved that way, looking past the glimmering surface of the river water. She was sweating lightly. He consented, and her cheeks were flushed from the heat of high. but she was determined to complete her simple mission as if it was an S-rank mission. He can't help but find the sight of her brows furrowing and her lips pouting from focus as cute. He then blinked. What did I just think? Cute? Hinata? As he sat there, thinking, he felt eyes on him. He looked up to see Hinata's teacher, Karin, looking at him. He gave her an awkward wave and a nod of his head. She waved back, but neither moved from their place. He then returned to his previous line of thought. Did he really just thought of Hinata as cute? Well, he had met numerous girls on his travels due to Jiraiya always finding the best places to find women. He had been forced to listen to Jiraiya wax poetry about a woman's body, regardless of the shape, the size, or the height. Tan or ivory or ebony, he's seen it all. Rainbows of hair colors of different lengths, from the floor-sweeping princesses to the pixie cut of a hyperactive traveler. From faces akin to delicate fairies of legends to the tomboyish charm. Naruto knew his girls thanks to Jiraiya, so he decided to figure out why Hinata was cute to him. Well, she did have the cherubic shape of a preteen, her cheeks still slightly rounded as her childhood fat have yet to be fully shed. Her face can be described as heart-shaped. The cut of her hair was more for practicality, so it was short, the ends curling up against her soft cheeks. Under the sun, the deep ebony of her hair looked almost blue or violet. Her lips were soft and pink. They resembled plums. He knew that they turned red and pouty whenever she blushed, and she blushed often around him. Then there was her eyes. They were rounded and almond-shaped, adding the allure of innocence and frailty to her. Her skin was ivory and under the sun, slightly red from the heat. She won't tan nicely, that's for sure. He wondered if she put a sunscreen on her skin to avoid splotchy sunburn. Hinata's eyes caught his, and the already red face turned redder. She pursed her lips and ducked her head before raising a hand to wave at him shyly. He liked her personality the most. It wasn't really her appearance. It was her expression around him. Every time she looked at him, it was as if he was bringing her the most expensive present the world could offer. Maybe even the moon itself. That was what made her so cute in his eyes. He grinned at her, and she looked like a bunny caught in the open. Ominous love. Mission in Konoha after Nami was slow. Kakashi seemed satisfied by the team's improvement and wanted them to build on that. Sakura had been given the choice between Iriujutsu and Jinjutsu due to her precise chakra control. She decided to settle on Jinjutsu, as it was easier to learn than Iriujutsu. She then tried to use it on Naruto as a test for one that she learned, but Naruto completely disagreed. My mask dispel any Jinjutsu, Sakura pouted. Then, can't you just take it off? Why are you even wearing a mask anyway? Sasuke, who was training in Raidon after Kakashi had checked their elemental alignment, turned to them with interest. Naruto knew that everyone was curious as to why he wore his mask, but he didn't want to tell them anything. Instead, he looked away and said, "Anyway, I'm going to gather some flowers and oil after this." Sakura huffed. "You're so obviously deflecting." Naruto rubbed his neck. While everyone have their own reason why they do things, Sakura get his message. He wasn't telling. Sasuke looked away, losing interest. After their training session ended, Naruto immediately went to the Yamanaka florist to buy more plants. He was almost close to replicating Hinata's scent. He just needed a few more ingredients to experiment with. It was almost an obsession, especially after he learned that Team 8 had gone out on their first C-rank mission. Unfortunately, they missed each other. Team 7 was doing a different mission far from any route that Team 8 would have used to leave Konoha. It was almost midnight when he succeeded at recreating the perfect replica. Yes, Minato shook his head. And what are you going to do with the scent? Naruto rewrote the ingredients and method so that it was easier to follow for the next time he create the batch. Nothing. I'm just going to burn it as incense for my room. Databeo. In this manner, Naruto wasn't human at all. A human won't be so obsessed with a scent without understanding how creepy that was. Unless they're insane. But Naruto wasn't aware. He was obsessed with the scent like how a pet was obsessed with the scent of their favorite person. In fact, each time he met Hinata, he will touch her in one manner or another to leave his scent on her. It was an unconscious thing that he did, and Minato wasn't sure that pointing it out to Naruto would change this odd habit of his. A few days later, Kakashi cut their team meetup short. Naruto had noticed the hawk circling over them, signaling a call for all Jounin to gather. If he recalled the schedule of Konoha and the other villages associated with Konoha, he had a suspicion as to what it could be. But just in case, he will keep his suspicion to himself. He sighed as Sakura tried to have Sasuke showed her more attention outside teamwork only to be rebuked by him. It was a familiar cycle that he had gotten used to in the team. Leaving them to their own things, he decided to take a walk. Maybe he'll find Hinata's team this time. It was always her or her team who found him first. Just thinking of surprising her made his step livelier. However, a noise brought him out of his daydream of grabbing Hinata from behind and twirling her around to hear that cute squeak of hers. He decided to investigate the noise and found two people smelling of the wind and spices holding a boy that smelled of the forest. Naruto quickly stepped forward. Sunasen, please drop the boy. The shinobi, someone wearing Suna's puppet corps uniform, sneered at him. And why should I do that? Naruto kept his calm smile plastered on his face. He is a child of Konoha. If you go through with your threat, then I will have no choice but to retaliate. He stepped closer, his eyes focused and his body battle-ready. He was serious. If the boy from Suna harmed that child, he will attack. He locked in a stare down with the puppeteer when he noticed something. A familiar feeling that he once felt when passing through Teki and the girl who carried the similar tingle to her chakra, though nothing like his greeted him. He kept his calm smile, though he heard Minato wondering, why is the 𝐲𝐵 in Konoha? This does not bode well. Jinchuriki are never allowed in another hidden village. They are too important and sometimes too unstable to be trusted in another hidden village. That wasn't good. Naruto will have to take off his mask if he had to face another Jinchuriki. Jinchuriki had been known to break through seals. The sorts of seals he can write in a moment wasn't made to handle the kind of chakra that Jinchuriki wield. They have a bad habit of overloading a sloppy seal and, more often than not, became a giant chakra bomb. He will require some preparation time to set up a stable seal for a Jinchuriki. Not something he can do here with no backup. The little boy started kicking. If you hurt me, my grandpa won't let you go. The Suna shinobi snorted. Why should I be scared of some old crone? The boy screamed. My grandpa is the Hokage. He won't let you go. The girl behind the puppeteer rolled her eyes. I am not involving myself. Naruto decided to make a move. Before anyone could blink, he grabbed the puppeteer's arm and held a kunai against the wrist. Drop the kid, or say goodbye to your fine chakra control. The puppeteer sneered, but he let go of the 𝐸ZANDAIM's grandson, deciding that forcing the issue wasn't worth his finer chakra control. He could get himself healed, but if he did hurt the grandson of the 𝐸ZANDAIM, then he might not receive the right treatment. He grimaced. Can you let go now, weirdo? Naruto kept his calm smile. Only if your partner promised to not lop my head off with her 𝐸ZAND. The girl behind the puppeteer had her hand on the giant fan behind her. She scoffed, fine. Naruto let the puppeteer go and grabbed the still groaning kid before the sand slyly swirling on the ground could grab him. However, it managed to leave a few thin lines of fine cut. Naruto placed the spooked boy behind him and stepped back as he stared at the one in the tree beside him. The others turned to the tree, and they turned pale. The scent of fear sour in Naruto's nose. Great. It wasn't a stable Jinchuriki. In fact, he looked horrible. Now what? The boy with gourd came down and stared at Naruto. You? What are you? Naruto stared at him. Who's asking? Because that was what Fu asked him when they met. What was he? And it wasn't just her. The Bijuu within her also asked the same question, wondering just what was he supposed to be. He wasn't human, and he wasn't Bijuu. He was an unholy mix of both. The boy with the gourd studied Naruto. You're not human. But you're not like Mother either. That drew sharp breaths from the other two behind him. The boy scowled. Mother is confused. Mother don't understand how this can happen. The one inside. The one inside. Is it the same, or was it someone else? Great. A curious Bijuu. And this one didn't look all that friendly either. Still, Naruto shrugged. Who knows? The Jinchuriki scowled. You're lying. It doesn't matter. You will die. Mother will kill you, and then the truth will come out. The redhead grinned. I am Sabaku no Gaara. Who are you, freak? Naruto hid his wince while Minato growled at the insult. He stayed calm as he answered. Uzumaki Naruto, he then added. You will find that killing me will be hard. Tanuki. Gaara bared his teeth. Kitsune. His savage expression suddenly smoothed out as he looked at the others. Kankuro. Temari. You're embarrassing me." The trio from Suna immediately left, and Naruto breathed a little easier. He then looked at the kid. "I don't think you should stray from places that you should be. There will be more foreign shinobi coming in. I get to settle with these 3 today. Who knows which crazy guy might decide to make chunky salsa out of you, related to the Hokage or not." The boy stared at Naruto with big eyes. "Nani? What's your name?" Naruto cocked a brow. "Uzumaki Naruto." "I just said that." The boy grinned. "My name's Sarutobi Konohamaru." Naruto blinked at him. "You're named after the village? Cool." Konohamaru suddenly asked him, "You don't look like you care about my grandpa." Naruto shrugged. "He's the Hokage, so..." "Why do you say that?" Konohamaru grinned. "I'm gonna make you my underling." Naruto frowned. How about no?" "Why not?" "Because I'm older? Also, I'm busy. I mean, I might be Jinin, but I'm still a shinobi. But I'm the Hokage's grandson." Naruto huffed. "So what? Until you wear the hat, and I'm forced to listen to you. You're just another kid to me. 𝐫𝐸. He's the Yondaime Hokage's son, but people don't hear him forcing others to be his underling." He added, "Also, shinobi are militaristic. We are not organized crime. The only way you'll be able to make me your underling is if you wear the hat, which is not going to happen for a very long time." Konohamaru sniffed. "Ebisu-sensei have all the tips and tricks to make me Hokage. He knew the shortcut to be stronger than Grandpa. I'll be Hokage in no time." Naruto snorted. "Then why is this Ebisu not the Hokage? If he's all that and he knew all the way to be stronger than the Sandaime, then he should wearing the hat by now. I'm telling you, kid, there is no such things as shortcuts when it comes to power or dreams. Things that are given to you or earned through shortcuts don't last, 𝐫𝐸. Also, I won't respect anyone that wears the hat through tricks and lies." Konohamaru pouted. "You don't know that." Naruto stared at him in disbelief. "I'm already a shinobi, and even I don't think I'm strong enough for that hat." "What makes you think you're strong enough for the hat when you haven't even earned your 𝐫𝐸?" He poked the boy's head. "Earn that 𝐫𝐸 and make a name first before you come to me and tell me that you're going to wear the hat. Until then, don't even dream about making me your underling, okay?" Konohamaru glared at him. "That's it. Just you watch. I'll be the Hokage one day. Without shortcuts. Then you'll have not choice but to respect me." The boy then stomped off. Naruto watched as the precocious brat ran off. "Brat." He shook his head. "Seriously, what's his deal? He better not get caught by another trigger-happy creep, 𝐫𝐸." He thought about following the kid from a distance, but decided against it. He might get reported for being the creep instead. So in the end, he decided against it. Instead, he continued his journey through Konoha until a familiar scent tickled his nose. A smile curled up his lips as he started to hunt for the scent. Her scent had gotten old the past few days after she left on that out-of-village mission. This meant that she had returned. Minato shook his head as Naruto's more animalistic side came out. The boy leapt onto rooftops and shot straight to where he scented Hinata's scent. The scent took him to Central, where he paused for a moment. It seemed that Team 8 had gone into the Hokage's tower to report. He leapt to the closest roof and waited there, not really thinking anything. After a moment, Team 8 came out, and Naruto watched as Hinata bid her teammates goodbye as they separated to return home. Karin must be at the Jounin meeting because she wasn't with them. Once she was alone, he stalked her to a less congested area before landing in front of her. Hinata felt as if she was being followed, but she decided to ignore it. Sometimes it was just ANBU making sure that everything was fine. She thought that she will deal with it when it decided to confront her. And when it did, she didn't expect the sunny smile. "Hinata!" Naruto blinked as Hinata froze. Then her eyes rolled back. He quickly grabbed her before she fell and hit her head. "Hinata!" Minato hit his coup with the way that girl just swooned. Seriously, he had never met someone who liked another so much that they swooned without a corset or low blood pressure being the culprit. He watched as Naruto fretted for a moment before gathering her and taking her to his roof. What a sly brat. As long as he wasn't doing anything improper, Minato will stay silent. As Naruto placed her in his bed, he stared at the sight for a moment. That odd restlessness that plagued him silenced. He didn't even notice it until she was there, flooding his home with her pleasant scent. After a moment, he went to the kitchen to make her something. She just returned from an extended mission. She must be hungry. He had just plated the salt grilled mackerel with a generous amount of teriyaki sauce when she came around. putting it on the island that worked as both divider and dining table between the kitchen and the study. He looked through the bamboo dividers to see her sniffing his bed before relaxing. The sight made him purr as it felt like she acknowledged his den. Hinata then sat up and looked around the modest home. Her eyes found his between the bamboos, and she blushed. Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled. I made dinner. I guess you will be hungry since you just came back. 𝐫𝐞𝐻𝐿. Hinata smelled the simple meal, and her stomach growled hungrily. She noticed that he had taken her shoes off, and they were placed at the jinchuriki beside his. The sight looked so natural and domestic that her heart started racing in her chest. She mentally scolded herself for being so unstable around him. She thought she should be better than this. Hinata-chan? Hinata came out of her self-deprecating thoughts and looked at him. Why yes. The sight of Naruto wiping his hand and putting the towel to dry placed all sorts of fantasy in her head. It was strange. Hinata was never the dreamer. While Ino and Sakura chased Sasuke everywhere, she was focused. But when it came to Naruto, she wasn't a kunoichi. She was just a smitten teenage girl. He made her so weak, yet inspired her to be strong. He smiled at her. Will you have dinner with me? She can't say anything other than, yes, please. As she sat at the island counter that also served as the dining table, she looked at Naruto. He still have his mask on, and she wondered if he will ever trust her enough to unveil himself. She took a bite of the well-cooked mackerel. The fish was fat and fresh, and hummed with pleasure. Hinata liked simple meal as much as she liked complicated cuisine. The meat of the fish easily separate from the bones. The salt was just nice and not overpowering, complementing the natural sweetness of the fish. And the generous amount of teriyaki sauce really brought out the umami flavor. Paired with fluffy white rice and simple salad made of finely sliced cabbage, cherry tomatoes, and lemon drizzle, and her tongue had found nirvana. Naruto chuckled. Glad you like them. I don't know how to make fancy food, but I'm good with grilling fishes, 𝐫𝐸. Hinata smiled. They are delicious. Naruto grinned, thanks. He then asked her about her mission, and Hinata tried her best not to stutter, so much as she explained that the village that they visited seemed to have lost their farm animals seemingly overnight. It turned out that there was a thief that had been stealing and selling those farm animals. They managed to track down all those animals, but leave the negotiating between the original owner and new owner between them. After all, both were victims. Hinata then offered to do the dishes, but Naruto pulled her away. Nah, I stalled you long enough. I don't feel like causing panic with your family. I mean, they can't see you up here. I have privacy seals up, 𝐫𝐸. Hinata blushed as he dried her hands with his towel and pulled her away from the sink. She tried insisting, but you fed me. I should at least do the dishes. Naruto shook his head. Nope, not letting you do it. Besides, he made clones. They can do it instead. I'm gonna walk you home. Okay. Hinata relented, realizing that he wasn't going to fold. Instead, they enjoyed the late evening sight of Konoha as they walked through the street. She took note. It has seemed like there is an influx of foreign shinobi in Konoha. Naruto nodded. I suspect that Chunin exam is here. She looked at him. Oh, really? He shrugged. All the signs say so. Influx of foreign shinobi? Check. Jounin meeting? Check. Overly competitive air between the genin from differently villages? Check. He looked at her. But I could be wrong. You should wait for your sensei to inform you. He suddenly stopped and stared. Hinata looked around him to see what seemed to be a team of Suna squad looking at fresh produce. Considering the harsh environment of Suna, seeing so much fresh produce must be bizarre to them. Naruto grabbed her hand and whispered, remember that trio? Hinata looked at him. WY. His voice was somber and serious. The one with the gourd is not someone that any genin should face. Not even Chunin or Jounin can face him. Not without death at best, crippled for life at worst. So if your team have to face theirs, forfeit. With that ominous warning, Hinata's eyes caught the manic gleam in the hollow teal of the boy with scarification tattoo on his temple. Love. Stay safe. He was right about the Chunin exam. At this moment, he was trying to stop Sasuke from calling out the somewhat obvious trap. Look, shinobi is not about standing out. The less people notice you, the better a shinobi you are. And frankly, Sasuke, you being who you are is already too famous for a shinobi, 𝐫𝐸. Sasuke F. Fine. Then what are we supposed to do? Naruto gestured. Just head for the right door with no fuss dash. I know that you are being most unyouthful barring us like this. Naruto grimaced. Right? Ignore him and let's go. Sakura looked at the boy in the most horrendous fashion she had ever seen and grimaced. She looked at Naruto. Should we stop him? Naruto shook his head. I think he's doing this on purpose. After all, Neji is a Hyuga. One thing about the Hyuga's dojutsu, the Byakugan, is that jinjutsu don't work on them. So letting his teammate doing this meant that they are up to something. Databeo. Sasuke stared at Naruto. You're very perceptive. Naruto shrugged. Observation is a skill that most modern shinobi neglect. If you watch your surrounding, you can glean a lot of information that can help you. Be it completing your mission or getting one over an opponent, observational skill can help. He looked at Sasuke. Why do you think most shinobi dislike the dojutsu of the Uchiha and Hyuga? It is just that your clan and the Hyuga tended to rely too much on the dojutsu's passive observation ability to really understand why the observation part is a passive. Sasuke blinked. He didn't think about it either. Naruto suddenly showed him a way to use his Sharingan for more than just battle. Then again, his eyes did focus on his opponent's movement and helped him predict their next move. If that wasn't a cheat to observing something, then he didn't know what was. Naruto also said something about the skill being neglected because he relied too much on his eyes. A memory of him saying in disdain on how the clan's ability suffered from relying too much on their dojutsu came to mind. Sasuke grit his jaw. He had always preached about not relying on his eyes to fold his opponent. If Sasuke relied on his dojutsu for power and advantage, then he was just paving a path of losing before him. That won't do. He won't allow it. Naruto didn't realize the fire that he lit in his teammate's chest as he went straight for the right door. Kakashi appeared moments before they arrive. He smiled at them, his single eye crinkling in happiness. Well, will you look at that? All three are here. Sakura greeted him. What do you mean, sensei? Naruto answered. He meant that the test had begun from the moment he gave us our form. Think about it. What is the most important thing as a genin squad? Sasuke frowned. Teamwork. Sakura gasped. Wait, does that mean that had I back out from taking the exam, we would have failed? Kakashi snapped his finger. Bingo. All correct. It seems that you are learning and learning well. He looked at Naruto. You are really reminding me of someone. But that aside, good luck in there. Once in, there is no escape. With that ominously cheerful warning, he disappeared. Sakura pouted. That's it? Sasuke shrugged and pushed open the doors. Almost immediately, his body broke out in cold sweat from the amount of competitive killing intent flooding out from the exam hall. He gulped and reminded himself that this was nothing before Zabuza's. He stepped in and looked around. Sakura instinctually grabbed his arm warmer, slightly trembling from the pressure. As he moved, her body chased after his for comfort. He wanted to click his tongue in annoyance. She should have grown from their time in Nami, so why was she being weak right now? Meanwhile, to Naruto, this was just a walk in the park. When he was traveling and Jiraiya left him alone for research, he trained his immunity by facing Minato's killing intent. Slowly getting used to man's deadly aura, unknowingly made 100-fold by his new status as Kyuubi. If anything, Naruto had his eyes on the other jinchuriki in the room. Gaara, too, was watching him with curious teal glare. And Naruto turned to see Hinata watching him with a small smile that seemed to be reserved just for him. He smiled as he greeted her. Hinata-chan, here for the exam too? She nodded. Why yes. Ano, gee, good luck. Naruto's eyes widened before he grinned back at her, his fangs flashing. Good luck to you too. How noisy. This is not a class reunion party, you know? Naruto turned to Konoha shinobi who said that. He wore glasses and looked like a gentle senpai. However, every primal senses in Naruto warned him that this person was far from trustworthy. He introduced himself as Yakushi Kabuto and offered to share what he knew about the Chunin exam's attender. Apparently, he had taken this very same exam 7 times in a row, emphasizing that it wasn't for the weak-hearted. Minato growled. That is suspicious. It is impossible to fail 7 times, especially if you had time to not only prepare, but the accumulated experiences should have been a crutch. Even if all exams varied, depending on who was in charge, failing 7 times is suspicious, especially if he have enough skill to gather intel on every single person in this room, like he claimed. Sasuke asked, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto blinked at the Uchiha's request, but he was curious too. What does this suspicious shinobi know about him? Kabuto pulled out a card. Knowing who to ask for took out half the fun in this. Uzumaki Naruto, Konoha Genin. He stared at the card. Other than the usual missions, 12 D ranks, 1A rank, there isn't anything too interesting here. The most interesting thing is that he is the apprentice of Jiraiya of the Sannin. He looked up at Naruto, whistling with interest. You're quite the big catch. Naruto's blood ran cold at the revelation, but he kept his poker face. He can feel the room's interest grew towards his person. Even those from Konoha stared at him. Sakura gawked. How come you never said anything about being Lord Jiraiya's student? Team 10 shifted, the Nara heir looking on with renewed interest. Ino was gawking at him as much as Sakura. Chuji simply continued snacking on his chips, although his eyes were staring. Sasuke was frowning as he looked at Naruto. That explains a lot. Naruto waved his hand. I don't really want to ride on the sage's coattail. It is why I didn't say anything. He smiled at Kabuto. You have your fingers quite deep in the pie. Kabuto nervously chuckled. Double? I just know who to ask, Minato growled. Which is even more suspicious since the only ones that knew are Hiruzen, Jiraiya, and Kakashi. Meaning someone very high up must be in contact with him to reveal this about you. Do not trust this boy. Naruto, got it. The discussion ended short when Marino Ibiki barked at them to take the number of their seat and start the exam. The rules were odd, and Naruto knew that Minato won't help him. His father believed that learning was a bit like stealing. A teacher won't tell everything, because students that were coddled learned nothing. It also meant that they were never meant to learn the subject if they lacked their observation skill. Sure, guidance during things like taijutsu, ninjutsu, and fuinjutsu was understandable. But to advance, one must observe the teacher. That said, it didn't take long for Naruto to understand that he needed to cheat. Covert information gathering. He spied Hinata breezing through the questions. The Hyuga clan traditionally wore their hair long, so as to hide the chakra vein around their eyes bulging when activated. They didn't have to look directly at their target after all. Hinata's hair might be short, but it was cut in that unique design where she can still hit her eyes when activating them. That aside, those without a unique information gathering ability will be having trouble. Not Naruto. He knew most of the answer to these questions, but for the ones he didn't, a tiny shikigami, the side of a dandruff, flew off his finger. Something so small was the height of chakra control for the likes of him. He sent it to fly to anyone that looked like a plant in the room. After all, they needed someone to steal information off of. The little thing floated over the head of a man before landing on the tip of a strand of his bang. Passing off as a random dandruff, it didn't attract any attention. Once it had gathered enough, it disappeared without a trace or even a pulse of chakra. Information flooded his mind, and Naruto drew in a deep breath, leaning back and closed his eyes to process the jumble of memories. After a few minutes, he returned to answering his paper. He was soon done. Smiling, he turned his paper upside down before glancing at Hinata. He caught her peeking at him and grinned, causing her cheeks to bloom carmine like Tsubaki. He wanted to talk to her, but this wasn't the place. 2 minutes left. He sighed and started to take that chance to meditate. He checked up on Minato, who watched him with a glint of fondness in his blue eyes. The QB still kept his silence, not wanting to let slip anything while the exam was still running. Naruto sighed and leaned against the gate. He can still feel his father's human chakra asleep in the seal stuck on the gate's lock. He could also sense the flickering chakra asleep within the cage. His mother. Time's up. Pinned down. He opened his eyes to face Ibiki's mental pressure. He drew in a deep breath as he listened to Ibiki's psychological question. The man even let out a passive killing intent to further intimidate the genin. The domino effect begun when the plants stepped out, unable to handle the pressure. They were good actors, he'll give them that. He noticed Sakura looking around. She caught his eyes and relaxed a little at seeing him sitting quietly. Sasuke was fine, though even from this angle Naruto can see him scowling. But the Uchiha was stubborn. He won't fold just with this. It was Sakura that Naruto worried about more. Made no mistake, the girl was smart. She might not be a strategic genius like the Nara clan, but she was as smart as any so-called genius clan like the Nara and Aburame. However, she was mentally and physically weak. She was still thinking like a civilian, and it was taking a toll on her psyche. Sakura have talent, true, and she have grit when push come to shove, true. However, she lagged behind in physical and mental conflict. Naturally, when he noticed the doubt creeping up on her, he decided to speak up. Shinobi sometimes work with little, if no information available. Ibiki looked at Naruto, his eyes narrowing, and Naruto smirked. Going into the unknown was common for Shinobi, especially when the mission was about gathering intel on the enemy. Just because I don't know what I'm going to face doesn't mean I can give up on the mission. He noticed Sakura's tense shoulders relaxing, her smart brain catching on what he really meant. This whole test was about covert information gathering. Ibiki was simply playing mind games on them to see if they have what it took to get into the field proper. They had been doing his job this whole time, except without the mental pressure. It was basically tricking them into doubting themselves. After a moment, the pebble that he threw into the pond created a ripple effect that calmed the nerves of many of his fellow shinobi. Shikamaru's tight frame slumped, snorting as he rolled his eyes with a slight blush for not catching onto the game sooner. Ino and Chuji naturally relaxed at seeing the brain of their team unwind. Kiba sighed in relief, whining at Akamaru a little. Shino nodded to himself, the almost silent buzzing within him calming. Hinata smiled as she glanced at Naruto, admiring the simplicity in which he commanded the room. Before long, the tension in the room slowly dissipated, and uncertain eyes now stared at Ibiki with silent determination renewed by Naruto's sly guidance. Ibiki stared down Naruto, testing the masked boy's resolve. Naruto simply stared back. After all, he might be Genin officially. However, his travel meant that he had experienced what it really was like being a shinobi. He knew this game, and he wasn't playing it. Ibiki smirked. "Is this your final answer?" Kankuro snorted. "Duh, just give it to us." Temari glared at him before sucking her teeth in annoyance. She can't believe that she was almost played for a fool. She glared at the proctor of the first part of Chunin exam. That weird masked boy. He was certainly something else. First, he gained Gaara's interest, but her little brother wasn't doing anything about him yet. Now, he all but called those that gave up cowardly fools not worthy of their 𝐸𝐴𝐴. Ibiki hummed. "You passed." After seeing the consequences of failing to gather the right intelligence, and lectured on getting caught only to be interrupted by a crazy, scantily dressed kunoichi, the group of examinees were finally let go to head for their next exam. Naruto chased after Hinata on the way to Training Ground 44 and caught her hand. "Hinata!" She gasped and looked at him with wide eyes that glimmered like gems under the bright sun, her cheeks red from his sudden touch. "Why, yes." Naruto whispered close against her ear. "Be wary of that guy with the glasses. That information he had about me? Those were classified. I don't think you should trust him." He then pulled away from her burning ear where his lips had grazed. "Anyway, this one seems to be a battle between teams of Genin. Stay away from the team from Suna. He smelled like blood, and I doubt that he would hesitate at killing you. Stay safe in there, okay?" Hinata nodded, her heart pounding from what almost felt like a soft kiss on her ear. "I will." "Why you too, Naruto-kun?" He grinned. "Yes, see you." After he left for his own team, Kiba shared a look with Shino, who said while opening his arms, "Stay safe, Hinata." Kiba swooned into his arm. "I'll be so safe." Hinata glared at them. "Stop that." When they didn't, she added with a Kanaya's threat, "Stop. Don't make me stab you." Kiba and Shino looked at her. "But how will that keep us safe?" She chased after the two boys in a playful mood. Ever since they caught on her interest in Naruto, they have been mercilessly teasing her, especially after Naruto was around. It was annoying, but she also found it fun. She can't exactly play around like this in the clan. Still, must they do this each time she and Naruto interact? Meanwhile, Sakura asked Naruto, "What did you tell her?" Naruto shrugged. "I'm just telling her to be safe and to stay away from the team from Suna." Sasuke asked why. Naruto sighed. 1. That kid with the gourd is unhinged. 2. That kid with the gourd have more chakra than either of you. 3. That kid with the gourd is addicted to killing. He looked at them, wanted to go on. Sasuke stared at Gaara. "Just him?" Naruto nodded. "Even his teammates are wary of him. Also, that dude with the glasses? I won't trust him." Sakura frowned. "But he's from Konoha and he have information. even on that kid with the gourd. Naruto looked at her, which is all the more suspicious. He looked at Sasuke. The information on me being Jiraiya's apprentice was classified. No one but the people involved knew. The fact that he even get that much? Something is fishy. When Kiba was scolded for making fun of their proctor, Naruto's senses was flooded by the scent of grasses and snake as well as rotting flesh. He stepped closer to his team as Minato processed the smell. That is not a scent that a genin should have. Not to mention the underlying nuances of medicine. Naruto, keep your guard up. This exam had just been infiltrated, and I don't like who I meant with the smell of snakes. As they walked through their gate, Naruto patted their shoulders and offered, "Want me to seal the scroll? It'll make it harder to steal." Sasuke handed him the scroll. Naruto might be new to them, but he certainly have more experience in this sort of things. Not to mention, Sasuke liked the challenge that Naruto posed for him. For the first time since leaving the academy, he stopped feeling stagnant. With someone stronger to test himself against, he started to feel some good progress. Naruto took the scroll and spent a moment creating a decoy scroll. He looked at them. These aren't just decoys, they are traps. If you feel as if your life is in danger, just activate the seal by running a pulse of chakra through the paper. Then escape far as you can. After he handed the dummy scrolls to both of his teammates, Sakura warily patted the scroll in her bag. "So, you just gave us bombs?" The smile she received didn't make her feel good. Boom boom Bakudan. Things were a little tense as they traveled through the forest of death. Sakura flinched at every noise, but didn't dare cling to Sasuke. She had noticed that he didn't like her clinging to him, so she ended up walking close, but not too close. She hated this, the exam, and the danger. She was aware that this was part of being a shinobi, but didn't feel real. Before Nami, training was fun and all. She liked being able to do things that other kids on the street she grew up in can't. It was a little shallow of her, but she liked the awe in their eyes. Even better, she get to be close with Sasuke. However, she gulped, thinking that this whole exam was turning into a nightmare. Sakura, she jolted but immediately relaxed as she looked at Naruto. Yeah, he studied her expression before offering a soft smile. "Calm down. You'll be fine," she bluffed. I know that. Bluffing was all she was ever good at, really. She bluffed hard to be as confident as Ino until she became as confident as Ino. She bluffed hard at being feminine until she became feminine. Now she just needed to bluff hard that she's a brave kunoichi until she became the brave kunoichi. Then maybe Sasuke will notice her more. Naruto stared at her more before nodding. "Okay," Minato said. "You don't believe her?" Naruto sent a mental shrug to him. She tried hiding it, but she's scared. It's in her eyes. I don't want to doubt her desire to be a shinobi. But it felt like she isn't ready for this life. Even in Nami, she trained, true, but she can't seem to physically meet the demand. He calmly pulled out his favorite paper and whispered, "Flutter." Sasuke looked up just as a flurry of paper attacked their ambushing enemy. They sputtered in shock as Naruto took out a kunai. "They're coming." Sakura's eyes sharpened. He can still smell her terror and anxiety, but she also exuded a strong scent of determination. Less worried at the scent of that, he focused his paper people to attack more of the others jumping at them. Sasuke burst out from behind the flurry of papers and punched at a confused genin. "He's just like Tenshi-sama." "Baka, shut your mouth." Naruto frowned at their odd discussion, but he pushed that concern aside. Instead, he focused on causing them as much confusion with his papers. Sasuke's Sharingan could look past the papers, and it didn't take much to subdue the other person. Sakura moved away from Senbon needles shot out of the umbrella that they carried on them. She threw some kunai at the other, but was easily deflected by their umbrella. In the confusion, he didn't notice Naruto appearing behind him. It was too late when he felt the hit on the back of his neck. Papers surrounded the other two and latched onto them, tying them down. Sasuke looked at Naruto as the boy pulled out another paper, ink spilling from the tip of his fingers and forming into a seal. Naruto asked the two, "This is a paper bomb seal. However, unlike ordinary paper bomb, it will spread the effect on the rest of the paper stuck on your body." That said, all I need to do is place this seal on your paper rope, and one of them shouted, "The scroll is in my back pocket." His friend scowled. "Seriously?" The other guy shouted, "You want to die now?" Naruto looked at Sakura, who nodded. She warily approached the duo and dug into their bag. She found the scroll and smiled. Sasuke said, "Hand it to Naruto, in case it's a trap." She quickly handed Naruto the scroll. Naruto put away the bomb seal in his hand and checked the scroll. He then smiled at the 𝐴IM genin. "Thank you. This is exactly the scroll we needed." He sealed the scroll away and said, "The paper will disappear once we are a few distant away. I promise that it won't explode. Those are just ordinary papers, databeo." The trio immediately left the disgraced 𝐴IM squad for the tower. Naruto heard their argument, but by then he was too far to really make out their exact words. As they headed for the tower in the center of the forest, Sakura sighed in relief. Well, that was easy dash. Before Naruto could stop her from jinxing their team, a strong futon jutsu hit them and forcing them off the branches while a giant snake somehow decided that Naruto will make a wonderful snack. Naruto cursed inside the snake. "Shit, I'm not into vor," Minato gawked. "Where did you even learn that word?" "Wait, Naruto, do you even know what that means?" Naruto formed a 𝐻𝐸𝐴ZENGAN in his hand. "I travel with the self-proclaimed super pervert, didn't I? Where do you think I learned that?" He slammed the pure chakra attack against the stomach lining of the snake, freeing himself before he could suffocate. Minato growled as Naruto broke free of the snake's stomach. "When I get my hands on that pervert," Naruto gasped once he was outside. "Thank the sage. That stomach stank." He then unsealed a little of his chakra that subdued his full senses to detect his team's whereabouts. "Now, who would send a snake after me?" Minato scowled. "Naruto." Naruto leaped into the trees. "I know." As he raced through the branches, there was a large explosion ahead, and he can recognize his work anywhere. He immediately blitzed through the forest, heading straight for the chaos. He can hear Sakura screaming as something large crashed through the trees. Using Shikigami, he sent them forth and bombarded the snake that was chasing after his team. As he raced past the snake's length, he found the rotten-smelling genin riding the snake's head. They looked at Naruto, and a different giant snake appeared. Naruto patted the snake's head as he jumped over the missed strike. A seal pulsed on the snake's skull, and Naruto all but flew forward as the head detonated. He didn't want to stay and fight. He might be trained by Jiraiya, but he wasn't stupid to think that he could match up against the likes of Orochimaru. The 𝐾𝐸 genin chuckled as Naruto created a paper shield to stop the snake from biting down on his frightened teammates. Well. If it isn't Zenko, it seems that you have graduated from Jiraiya's knees and entered the world of shinobi proper. Sasuke looked at Naruto. "You know this guy?" Naruto gulped. "Unfortunately." Their opponent scoffed. "Unfortunately? How hurtful your words are. Especially after the night we spent together." Minato groaned. "I told you that it's going to bite you back in the ass." "I told you." Naruto grumbled. "Will you stop talking like that, you pedo? Also, we were snowed in, and I don't know that 𝐸𝐸 was looking for you. I was just being helpful. That said, what are you doing in Konoha? I doubt that it was for tea with the Hokage." The pedo smiled at Naruto. "I wonder, why are you still wearing a Konoha attire? It is clear that this village have been nothing but cruel to you." Naruto glared. "I'm not a kid that will cry and pout just because people don't like me. As for cruel, I could hardly care less. After all, they ignorant fools. And you are distracting me, aren't you, Orochimaru?" Orochimaru peeled off the mask made of human flesh from his face. "Why, yes. It is a pity that a skilled Uzumaki prodigy like you choose to waste their time in this sage-forsaken village." Naruto cursed as 3 snakes appeared. Sakura screamed and moved to defend herself from a snake, while Sasuke was panicking. Naruto used his Shikigami to blind the snake aiming for him when Orochimaru decided to deal with him personally. Naruto saw that the snake sage was planning something and moved away from the hand coming for his seal. He growled, and his invisible tail lashed out. Blood spurted out from the unseen attack that clawed Orochimaru's side. Orochimaru cursed as the body fell backward. The man reappeared from the mouth of his damaged body. What is a newborn but fully grown? Naruto ignored him and saw a snake aiming for Sasuke. He created a clone to slam a 𝐻𝐸𝐴ZENGAN into the skull of the one harassing Sakura. He then saw that the other snake had also been dealt with through mutual destruction with his clone. He looked at Sasuke, who was pale from facing someone like Orochimaru for the first time. He can smell terror from both his teammates. Orochimaru scoffed. "So weak." Naruto scowled. "Like you have never been weak when you just started out." He stepped in front of Sasuke, Stop trying to gaslight him. Wait, he glared at the sage. You've been obsessed with the Sharingan for a while now. Didn't you run from that group 𝐷𝐷𝐷 joined because he almost killed you when you tried to steal his eyes? Sasuke froze hearing that. Itachi had almost killed this monster before him? Orochimaru's expression darkened. You know, if it wasn't because I know using you will be impossible with that monster sealed inside you, I would have used your body for research, he smirked. Yes, I'm here for Sasuke Kuin's body. Naruto sneered. So, if you can't get the elder brother, you will settle for the younger brother. Sasuke asked him, what is he talking about, Naruto? Naruto answered, he wanted your body to use it to achieve his dream. In fact, I know that he had been gathering talented children to use their body to prolong his life. Orochimaru promised. But I will help Sasuke achieve his dream too, Naruto countered. I don't think having you raise a bunch of Uchiha to be used by you as throwaway costume is part of his dream. Orochimaru growled. Zenko-chan, you are getting on my nerves, Naruto smirked. Good. He then slapped his hand on the giant branch, 𝐫𝐞𝐽 no Jutsu. A giant toad appeared and swallowed them. Sakura screamed in terror, but her voice was swallowed by the toad. The summoned toad leaped away from Orochimaru just as he realized that Naruto had purposefully talked to him to trap him in a giant exploding seal. TSK. Fucking Uzumaki. The explosion rocked the forest of death and leaving a crater where the group once stood. However, Orochimaru dug himself out of the crater, once more in a new body. He cursed, leave it to an Uzumaki to make me use my rebirth technique twice. Damn it, my chakra's too low. I need to push this plan back for Alter. With that, he disappeared just as Mitarashi Anko landed at the edge of the crater. She saw the left behind shedding and cursed, knowing that she had just missed her traitorous former mentor. It was late in the evening when the toad landed by a river and regurgitated them. Naruto thanked his friend and immediately shed his clothes to wash up in the river. Sakura was unconscious along with Sasuke from shock. After he washed himself up from toad slime, since the smell was torturous to his nose, he set up camp. He was just grilling the fishes he caught when Sakura came around and gagged in disgust. Wadash. Ew. Naruto pointed to the river. You can wash up there. That rock formation there should be good enough for privacy. Before she could retaliate, he raised his hand. Sakura, we are shinobi, and you just have to believe me when I say that I'm not watching. Besides, I got fish to watch. He gestured at the fishes being cooked over open fire. Her stomach growled. She grumbled, fine. While she did that, Naruto looked at Sasuke. He had been convening with Minato on what to do about Sasuke. The matter with Itachi that he revealed was simply something that he learned from Jiraiya ever since the name Akatsuki started becoming famous for gathering S-rank shinobi from all over. Such a powerful concentration of people was a reason for concern. Not to mention the fact that the most promising Uchiha since the time of Madara had joined them. Minato did not like the sound of that. Sasuke slowly came around and grimaced at the sticky state of his skin. He scrunched his nose at the smell before noticing that Naruto was dressed lightly and was busy cooking fish. Naruto nodded at him. Sakura should be about done washing up. Sasuke numbly nodded before asking. About Itachi, did he really face that Orochimaru and almost won? Naruto hummed. From words on the vine, Orochimaru tried to steal Itachi's body to use his eyes, but Itachi almost killed him. Information on how he survived wasn't clear, but he had a ready accomplice that rescued him was the consensus. He noticed Sasuke's grim expression. Are you tempted? Sasuke frowned. Tempted? Naruto nodded. I noticed since joining Team 7 that you're anxious about growing stronger. Orochimaru can train you in a way that will make you strong with the shortest amount of time possible. But if you give yourself to him, what about your other dream? Sasuke recalled what Naruto said to Orochimaru. I don't think having you raise a bunch of Uchiha to be used by you as throwaway costume is part of his dream. Naruto shrugged and looked at Sakura. Food? Sasuke stood up. I'm gonna wash up. He then scowled. What was up with the toad anyway? Naruto answered. That was one of Ero Sennin's favorite fast escape method. Sorry about the slime though. Personally, I hate using it myself. Databeo. Sakura shuddered. It was traumatizing. Naruto handed her a stick of grilled fish. Here. The next morning, Team 7 headed for the tower in the middle. While on the way there, Sasuke noticed something. He paused, forcing his teammates to pause. He pointed, "Someone's in trouble over there." Naruto frowned. "Sasuke, stay here. It might be a trap by that pedo." He leaped down, and Sakura said, "He's been carrying us through the exam, doesn't he?" Sasuke hummed, but said nothing. It wasn't that he didn't notice. Naruto had been leading them without outright claiming the role of their team leader. He had been taking care of them after the scare with Orochimaru too, trapping their camp with his seals and checking on their wounds. The only reason Sasuke didn't argue was because there was nothing to argue about. He will admit that Naruto was strong and training with him was a breath of fresh air. But Sasuke also noticed that Naruto didn't face Orochimaru. Rather, he had used misdirection to escape. Still, Naruto returned with a red head behind him. She was dressed in purple and looked like she had been running blindly to save her life. Her long red hair was a mess, and she was watching them warily behind her red-rimmed glasses. Sasuke frowned at the sudden addition. "Who is that?" Naruto sounded breathless in disbelief himself. "Cousin. I just found my cousin, Dadabayo." He raised his hand. "I know this sounds too good to be true, but she knew some Uzumaki technique that only my clan can use, so." Sakura smiled at the girl. "Where did you come from?" The newly discovered Uzumaki answered. "Kusa." Naruto scowled. "They left her for dead." He looked at his team. "Head for the tower first. I'm going to send her as close to the entrance as possible." The girl grabbed his sleeve. "Can I just follow you?" Naruto looked at her. "Won't it be safer to just leave?" She shook her head. "I don't want to be alone." Sharing a look with his team, he sighed. "Okay, just keep up." The Uzumaki girl grinned. "All right." As they leaped their way once more, they learned that her name was Uzumaki Karin. She was a genin from Kusa. She was their censor. Last evening, when resting in a cave, a giant bear attacked them. Apparently, they had intruded on its territory, but since she wasn't as agile as them, they left her behind, and she had been running through the night to survive, but was caught in a dead end until Naruto swooped down and saved her. Naruto chuckled at her recollection. "Hail, Uzumaki stamina." Karin laughed. Hail. They finally reached the tower, and Karin had to leave for the other doors while Team 7 went through their designated door to register the completion of their exam. Naruto looked at the haiku left behind by the Hokage before unsealing the twin scrolls. He shared a look with his team, who also came to the same answer behind the haiku's riddle. He opened the scrolls, and a scarecrow appeared with a banner. "Congratulations for passing the second part of the Chunin exam. Ultimatum number 2. Uzumaki Karin didn't know what to make of her luck. Just when she thought that she will die, she somehow survived. And not because of dumb luck. Fate seemed to have decided that she deserved some slack in the form of her cousin, Uzumaki Naruto. Well, he claimed to be Uzumaki, but she had heard from her mother that all Uzumaki have red hair like ripe tomatoes. Or blood, depending on who she asked. But Naruto have a head of gold locks. Also, what was up with the mask? It felt like it was an amalgamation of seals. She was somehow given a nice enough accommodation after appearing at the tower. It was certainly miles better than the closet-sized room that Kusa graced her with. She didn't even know if her so-called teammates survived the forest of death after leaving her for dead, and she couldn't find it in her to feel a teaspoon of care. Also, Naruto had mentioned something about Uzumaki being welcomed in Konoha. She wondered how to change village. Surely she wasn't worthy of being kept in Kusa? If she appealed to the Hokage using her clan's name, maybe the soft-looking leader will help her escape that hellhole? Karin stepped out of her room for breakfast on the 4th day, hungry. She didn't expect to see Naruto again so soon. Also, who was that girl with the pale eyes? She saw them around Konoha a lot, so she must be from one of those fancy clans. As she spied, Naruto seemed to be a mix of fluster and bravado. She knew this. Karin liked to fancy herself, well-versed in human behavior, and it seemed that her blonde cousin were carrying something of a crush on the pale-eyed girl. And from what she can see, with the way the girl fidgeted and the blush on her cheek, she reciprocated his feelings. Yet it seemed like they have yet to come forward with each other. She slyly watched from behind the wall, eager to see the unfolding drama before her. "Glad that you listened to me about Gaara. I don't know what I'll do had Kiba decided to go through and got your squad killed." Naruto's expression darkened from the downward twist of her lips. He looked at her. "Did you get any injuries?" Hinata shook her head. Shino's allies are very good at weakening our targets, so Kiba and Akamaru easily subdued him. She then added, B, but I also did my P part. Naruto grinned, patting her head. I know. You used those pretty peepers to look at their scrolls before planning the attack, right? Hinata blushed, but enjoying his attention. Why, yes. Karin wondered who Gaara was, but two boys who wasn't that far from her seemed to know the girl, as the boy with the white puppy grumbled. Look at her, being all coy and spoiled with Naruto. Watching her like this is so weird, the boy with the shade said. It cannot be helped. The reason why is because Hinata is in love with Naruto. Puppy boy rolled his eyes. Tell me something I don't know, Shino. Shino thought for a moment before saying. Boys inherit most of their traits from their mothers, while girls inherit many of theirs from their fathers. Basically, if your penis and testis are big, then you should thank you, mother. What? Puppy boy, who must be Kiba, pulled a face at the other boy. That's not what I meant when I said tell me something I don't know. Shino pushed his shades up. But this fact is something that you don't know. You dash. Karin hit a snort of amusement. That boy with the shade, Shino, was funny. Also, he knew that wasn't what Kiba was talking about, but he trolled Puppy Boy with a monotone voice that it didn't sound like he was joking at all. The boy with glasses seemed to notice her as he looked in her direction. Karin blushed and dashed away. Karin almost stumbled into Naruto, but caught herself before she crashed into him. She awkwardly greeted him. Hey. She looked at Hinata and waved at her. Hello. Hinata smiled at her, her eyes questioning. Hello. Naruto introduced her. This is Uzumaki Karin. Hinata turned to him. Uzumaki? Your relative? For some reason, she wasn't stuttering. But Karin, being a girl herself, caught on that Hinata had thought of her as threat. So Karin immediately tried to diffuse any future misunderstanding. Why, yeah, I'm Karin, from Kusa, and Naruto rescued me from a bear. She then grinned. Anyway, I heard that the cafeteria have okonomiyaki, and I want to try the one in Konoha, so bye. But before she could leave, Hinata's soft voice called, Wait. Karin internally cringed, but she kept a smile on her face. Yes? Hinata smiled. Why don't we eat together? She glanced shyly at Naruto, the odd tension Karin sensed from her gone. Hinata continued, Would I like to know more about Naruto Koin's family? Karin blinked at the easy acceptance and realized that Hinata understood that she wasn't into Naruto or anything. She thought that this girl was extremely sharp. She chuckled. I don't know much about the Uzumaki clan, to be honest. My mother don't exactly have much chance to talk about it, you know? Thought of her mother brought bitter tears burning behind her eyes. But she wasn't going to cry before this people. But Naruto asked, Did something happen to her? Karin blinked. Huh? She looked to see him facing her, and Hinata seemed to see something in her face that caused her expression to soften even more. For the first time since she truly left alone in this world, Karin felt a sense of warmth. Oh, my mother recently passed away. Hinata reached out to touch her arm, and when Karin didn't pull back, the red-haired girl was soon engulfed in warmth with gentle scent. It wasn't pity. No. Rather, I understand. Karin's lips wobbled before she grabbed hold of this new girl and pressed her face against her shoulder, tears silently falling from her eyes. Her body trembled with long suppressed emotion as she tried her best to not cause too much scene. Still, it was nice to finally feel compassion after such a long time of cold dismissal. Naruto awkwardly stood on the side. He couldn't really relate to either girls. After all, his dad thought change was still with him. His mother, on the other hand, he never get the chance to know. Minato said he has her temper and her passion. He knew how she looked like from the few times he took a peek at her chakra deep within him, asleep. But the bond that a child have with their mother was lacking with him. So he could not relate with the kind of sorrow either girls felt from losing a parent. In the end, he just stood there dumbly. It took a while before they both calmed down enough to get breakfast. Well, it turned out that okonomiyaki was just hearsay. But the food in the cafeteria was filling either way. Once again, a good kitsune udon was beyond Naruto. Hinata heard his dismay and offered, If you don't mind me coming to your H house again, I could make you a bowl of kitsune udon. She tapped her pointer tips together, face down, but her eyes peeked up at him with her cheeks flushed red, coloring her ivory face an adorable shade. Naruto felt an odd sensation in his chest, like he had just been stabbed or pierced through by something like an arrow. He pressed a hand on his chest, thinking why his heart just went kyun at the sight, even more when she blinked. Looking at Hinata like this made him think of those cute forest critter with big, wet eyes. He mumbled with a shy nod, sure. On Hinata's part, she was internally cheering. It's date. Karin hid a smile at the sight of these two. She looked at Hinata. She wondered if they could be friends after the exam. She also wondered what to do and how to stay in Konoha. Having felt such warmth and gentleness, how could she bear to return to the frigid and cruel Kusa? There must be a way. One way came to mind, but her hand gripped at her sleeve. At this moment, the only parts of her with scars were her shoulders. But every time she looked at them, she was haunted by the memory of her mother in the morgue, covered in bite marks from around her neck to even her feet. As Hinata separated to spend some time with her own team, Naruto called her Karin. Karin looked at him. Yes? He gestured. Come with me. A little confused, she followed him. Karin recalled the real reason she followed him. It was less that he was an Uzumaki like her, but more because of his chakra. They were warm and comforting. It reminded her of days when her mother was free and they spent it under the gentle sun, just enjoying the peace of a simple day. Simply put, Naruto made her feel safe. He took her through several corridors and finally reached a door that was guarded by two ANBU. Naruto tensed a little at the sight of the two, shaking his hand to release his reaction, and knocked on the door. Uzumaki, it is about that request I made of you. Enter. Naruto opened the door and gestured for Karin to follow behind him. She gulped, a little nervous. Also, he made a request. The old Hokage looked as soft and weak as before, but she quickly realized that he wasn't what he presented himself to be. Or rather, she only saw what sides of him that he wanted her to see. Right now, this man was stern, though his gaze warmed at the sight of Naruto. He greeted the boy. Is this the cousin you told me about? Naruto nodded. This is Uzumaki Karin. From what I have been informed, her mother sought refuge in Kusa. Though I just learned of her demise, Hiruzen hummed, puffing on his pipe, eyes scrutinizing her. She do indeed have the crimson hair that the Uzumaki clan are famous for. But what else made you certain that she is related to you? After all, the Uzumaki clan isn't the only clan with red hair in this world. Naruto answered Kagura Shingon. Karin remembered him asking her to prove to him that she was indeed an Uzumaki. The only thing she can do well in regard to her clan that wasn't related to being bitten was her sensory ability. When she explained it, he immediately recognized said ability and immediately believed her. The reason Karin even revealed herself as Uzumaki was because of the Uzumaki kamen he wore. Sure, she saw the kamen everywhere on Konoha's uniform. But as Genin, he didn't have the flak jacket worn by Konoha shinobi. That meant that he wore it as a clan's kamen and not part of the village's force. Hiruzen stopped puffing, his dark eyes bright. Is that so? Then, Miss Karin, how many shinobi is in this building at this very moment? Karin gulped and focused. She knew that there were many and more outside the tower, but counting them will take some time. So, in the end, she glumly said, many and more coming in from the outside. Hiruzen, instead of feeling suspicious, burst out laughing. A true blue Uzumaki, all right. They never really care about the details, just that they did their job. He looked at Naruto. Taking her away from Kusa could cause some friction between our villages. Her heart dropped at that. Of course, escaping that damn place won't be so easy. Naruto answered. Uzumaki is the clan that stood witness to the birth of Konoha. Konoha failed to save Yuzushio when Kyumo and Kiri decimated the island of Yuzu. You promised an open-door policy for all Uzumaki refugees. Are you turning your back on that oath you made? In fact, it is known that you made a blood oath from the still bloody soil of Yuzu itself. Karin's eyes widened at Naruto's firm retaliation. This was his leader, and she knew elderly shinobi, no matter how soft they looked, were dangerous to provoke. She didn't want her warm cousin to get in trouble with his own people. So, she thought that perhaps she should just go back to Kusa when Hiruzen's expression, once stiff from Naruto's reminder of his oath, softened once more. He chuckled. You truly are descended from the daimyo of Yuzu. He tapped his pipe, dislodging the ash in the head into an ashtray. He looked at Naruto. Very well. She can stay in Konoha, but only if you pick up the mantle of clan head. Naruto frowned. We are just two people. Hiruzen pointed his pipe at him. Two, yes, but still a clan will have more power to claim her than just a family. You will have some political sway to demand the return of your kin. Konoha, because of my promise in honor of your clan, will have no choice but to stand behind you, he added. Not to mention that despite Yuzu's fall, you still carry the royal blood of Yuzu's daimyo. If you were the mantle of the head of the Uzumaki clan, Kusa can't just ignore you. Your lineage alone can have the ears of any daimyo, even if they don't take you seriously. You just need to give the daimyo of Hai some proper offering to at least gain his support. Kusa, I believe, is suffering from endless civil war. They cannot afford to battle Konoha or Hai, or both for the sake of one girl. Karin gulped. This turned out to be a bigger mess than she thought. But would Naruto do it? Naruto stared at Hiruzen for a long time. While outside, he appeared to be thinking. Within, he was counseling with Minato on the pros and cons of taking up the mantle of clan head for an almost extinct clan. Then Minato said something interesting. The Uzumaki are scattered all over the world. If you stand up as the clan head and made your presence in Konoha known, then it could help gather the strays back here. Naruto asked, "Are you sure?" Minato answered, "There is no harm in doing so. Even if it is just you and Karin. At the end of the day, you are still one clan," he then added. One of Kushina's hope was to find all her clan members. She believed that there should be more than just her. Her clan wasn't so weak that they can just die out. It was one of the reasons why she dreamed of becoming Hokage. The main line of the daimyo of Yuzu might have died out, but she was still related to the main bloodline. But she was so far removed from the line of succession that they didn't think much when Mito asked for someone of Kushina's chakra quality to replace her as the Kyuubi's jinchuriki. Naruto sighed. "Another deal." Hiruzen smiled. "It is all part of life. Equal exchange if you want things fair." Naruto looked at the Hokage. "You played a dirty trick, Gigi," he sighed. "Fine. I'll accept this ultimatum. She is family, after all." Karin blushed at his declaration. After her mother's unfortunate passing, no one really saw her as kin. She was just a useful tool to her village. The reason they even allowed her to take on this Chunin exam was because she didn't want to end the same way her mother did. So she promised to pass the exam to prove that she was more than just chakra battery. But even that was a fail. But Naruto struck her like a silver lining during a storm. Hiruzen smiled. "You truly embody the will of fire brighter than anyone else I know." Naruto snorted. "Even you?" Hiruzen hummed. "Hurry up and make a name for yourself, Naruto. This hat is heavy on my head, and it is only getting heavier as I grow older. These days, I just want to peel sunflower seeds and enjoy the good weather while watching over my grandson." He chuckled. "I wonder if I'll ever get to live that dream." Naruto scoffed. "You've gone senile if you think anybody will accept me under that hat." He bowed. "Excuse me, Sandaime-sama." As Karin followed after Naruto's heels, she wondered what sort of relationship that Naruto have with the village leader. The older shinobi looked at him with fondness and guilt while Naruto seemed cold and distant with his leader. Keeping a professional enough distance, but with a hint of disrespect? It was strange as the Hokage just let him get away with the insult. "Naruto!" Karin looked to see the dark-haired boy from the other day approaching her cousin. Naruto nodded at him. "Sasuke." Sasuke glanced at Karin before saying, "What are you doing?" Naruto sighed. "Had a meeting with the Hokage to discuss about Karin." Sasuke raised a brow, and Naruto groaned. "I'm a clan head now, Databeo." Sasuke huffed with a scowl. "At least you have someone to represent." Naruto looked at him. "Oh yeah, you're on the clan's council. But don't you have a representative to attend for you?" Sasuke hummed. "Not anymore. I have to attend personally now that I'm a shinobi." Naruto turned to him. "Really? Can you tell what you usually do in those stuffy meetings?" Karin quietly followed Naruto and Sasuke from behind, anxious for the future. Blood Oath. Team 7 stood on the walkway, circling the walls around the arena below, watching as Genin eliminate each other from reaching the finale. Sasuke's opponent had been tricky, as they seemed to be able to absorb chakra. At least that was what the Uchiha said after he used pure taijutsu to subdue the leech. Unfortunately for the Genin from Odo, Sasuke's taijutsu had improved after he started sparring with Naruto. This was because Naruto's speed, agility, and strength far outstrip his, so he had been using that gap in abilities to further his own mastery. Sasuke had been using Naruto as the grinding stone to sharpen his skills. Sakura had to face Ino, and it showed that though both girls had improved, they still have a long way to go. For a moment, Ino caught Sakura under her Yamanaka body-stealing technique. Yet somehow, Sakura managed to break out of her control through pure mental strength. However, other than that one impressive feat, she and Ino matched in skills and ended up knocking each other out, thus disqualifying each other. Minato hummed, interesting. The fact that she did that meant that she have an impressive in chakra. Then again, you did say that she is the smartest girl in class on par with the likes of Nara and Aburame. I won't be surprised if she becomes a Jinjutsu mistress capable of challenging even the Sharingan. Naruto thought. You think so? Pity she didn't think to use her Jinjutsu on Ino. Why is that? Minato chuckled. I think this is a fight of women's pride. Huh? Minato smiled. You'll understand one day, Naruto. Understanding that Minato won't share anything more, Naruto continued to observe the battles below. Before long, his name was called to face a guy named Dosu from Odo. Naruto frowned. The team from Odo have annoying abilities, all surrounding sounds. He has sensitive ears. Pursing his lips, he started to scheme on how to handle such a technique. Gee, good luck. He turned to see a blushing Hinata watching him. He grinned at her, signaling that he heard her almost silent cheer. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Being so suddenly attacked by Naruto's sunny smile, Hinata had to fight for the very life of her consciousness, refusing to black out when her man went down for his fight. She gripped the steel railing hard enough to make it squeak. Kiba paled from seeing the bending metal and inched away from the quiet but excited red-faced Hyuga, steaming from the heat in her heart. Naruto, not noticing the rather intense effect he had on Hinata, continued on his way to the arena. He prepared several seals in his chakra, ready to face the troublesome opponent. Dosu eyed the masked shinobi. He had heard about the boy's remarkable skill with seals, even managing to damage Orochimaru to the point that his leader had to retreat. He decided that he will have to kill the masked Uzumaki. Naruto can send his fatal desire toward Naruto, so he mentally sighed and put his hands in his sleeves. He stared at Dosu, waiting for the signal. Start! Dosu didn't wait or dally, taking Naruto seriously by using his special sound attack. Naruto immediately used his Shikigami to create a sound barrier between him and Dosu. It lessened the effect on his body, but he can feel slight pain. Minato warned him. He is using sound to vibrate the water molecules in your body. Naruto groaned, coughing out blood as the sound barrier slowly thinned. He summoned more Shikigami to recreate his destroyed paper barrier. Despite that, his ears were ringing, not quite bleeding as Minato directed his chakra to heal him. He directed his Shikigami to rotate around him, creating another sound as the paper sped around him. The fluttering noise of paper countered the worst of the sound attack as it was louder, easing up on the worst of Naruto's pain. He stood up from where he had to cower behind his sound barrier. Above them, Kakashi nodded. I see. Sound can only be countered with sound. Dosu started his new sound attack, but this time Naruto was on the offense. Papers fluttered around his arm with the sound system attachment. He used sound to tear apart the papers, but his attacks were weaker due to other sound interfering with his. However, more papers swarmed him and began to give him paper cuts. Cursing, he started to move away from the papers and face Naruto in taijutsu. Naruto greeted his kick with a brace of his arm. He then started to retaliate. Unlike when he first trained with Iruka, his movements were more structured. He still returned to his more feral moves when sparring. But that was just another lie because Naruto actually do know a taijutsu technique. It was something Minato know and one that Kushina failed to master. An Uzumaki taijutsu special, Kyoto-ryu. He seldom used the technique since it was made to counter samurai. The Uzumaki clan was known for Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu. To honor his clan, Minato had Naruto manipulate Jiraiya into visiting Uzushio. While investigating the ruin and practicing his skill with undoing dangerous Fuinjutsu trap, Naruto found a dilapidated dojo. Minato immediately recognized it and told Naruto to investigate it. It looked boring on the first glance, but having learned much of the Uzumaki clan's secrets from Minato, Naruto knew that the village only looked useless on the surface. So he started to spend some time investigating the place, while Jiraiya checked the burned library and castle. That was how he discovered his mother's incomplete taijutsu, 𝐞𝐦𝐻. He had been training the few stances that Kushina knew and Minato remembered. But with the scroll that appeared from a hidden scratch seal under a cracked flagstone, recognizing his chakra as Uzumaki despite having most of it replaced by the Kyuubi's yang, Naruto managed to learn the full moves. He also learned that his clan can be hyperfixated on a certain topic. That said, the progenitor that founded this school was an eccentric Uzumaki samurai. Because although he called himself a samurai, he used no blade. He believed that a human body can be forged into the ultimate blade. Naruto might be learned in the Kyo-Churiya Taijutsu, but he wasn't confident enough to use it against the like of Momochi Zabuza. It was why he used his kopis when facing the Kenjutsu expert. However, for the likes of Dosu, it was perfect to try the new moves he had been practicing. Dosu grimaced as Naruto moved faster than he anticipated. He tried defending himself, but Naruto moved in and moved out faster than he can retaliate. After a moment, he caught Naruto and punched. There, Naruto moved his body to the side and used his arms to trap Dosu's armored arm. Within moments that Dosu's attack went through the hole he made with his arms and back, Naruto snapped his arms forward. Dosu screamed as he broke the genin's arms to several different sections and cracking the rest. Naruto then quickly pulled back and kicked Dosu's chin, throwing the genin into the wall, leaving an indent. Naruto then returned to neutral stance, staring at Dosu, guard still up. But after a few twitch, his opponent failed to stand up in the allocated seconds. Dosu stilled after. Uzumaki Naruto win. Naruto breathed out a breath of relief and walked up the stairs back to the viewing walkway. He nodded at his team and smiled at Hinata, raising 2 fingers in a peace sign. "I win," Sasuke asked him. "I never seen you move like that." Naruto sweated at his accusing tone that also have a hint of a pout. Sasuke, he noticed, seemed to be clingy with Naruto. Whenever there was a free time, he will seek Naruto out for training. Naruto sighed. "Well, I haven't mastered everything in the art, so I don't feel like I should use it against you." "Those moves were made to kill like a blade." Guy asked him, "What is the school for the taijutsu you used?" Naruto hummed, "I haven't figured out if it falls under taijutsu or kenjutsu. I mean, the founder called himself a samurai, but he can't use the katana or any sort of weapons." He tilted his head in thought. "But the school is named Kou-Turyu." Guy blinked, rubbing his chin. "Interesting. Even the name implied that this is a kenjutsu technique. But I thought you used Uzumaki Kagura?" Naruto nodded. "Uzumaki Kagura is safer to use against the likes of Zabuza. I haven't mastered enough Kyo-Turyu technique to use it confidently against a real kenjutsu master." Sasuke asked, "Can you teach me?" Naruto sadly shook his head. "Sorry, no can do. This is Uzumaki techniques. I'm sure you understand if I can't teach you, right?" Sasuke clicked his teeth and turned away from Naruto, his whole figure not pouting from being denied. But he didn't push it. Contrary to what most think, Sasuke did not think that people owed him dangerous techniques. He understood the importance of keeping things in the clan. Otherwise, he could have easily demand to learn techniques from other clans like the Yamanaka's mind-stealing techniques or the Hyuga's Juken. He might not pout for a few days after being told no, but he can find other techniques to learn. After a few more rounds, Hinata was called down. Naruto frowned as Neji walked down to the arena. He was worried about the older Hyuga's resentment towards Hinata, but he also believed in Hinata. She was a strong girl. Her timidity wasn't a weakness. When push come to shove, she came through. Neji scowled at her. "Give up." Hinata returned his scowl with a smile. "No." Neji sneered as he took the opening stance to Juken. "Then it's your funeral." Hinata took her own stance of Juken. "No one is dying today. Nisan, start." Naruto watched as the sounds of clapping echoed like thunder all around the arena. The Hyuga wasn't known for flashy techniques. Barring a few, their techniques were deadly with its simplicity. Even when enemies knew about it, countering their dangerous touch wasn't easy. In fact, the simplicity of the Juken combined with their Byakugan made them even deadlier to face. So he watched with a frown. Sakura groaned. "Hinata is strong, but I heard that Neji is stronger." Kakashi hummed, "It can't be helped." Not only did his age meant that he have more time to master Juken, he also have a year of more experience compared to Hinata's 6 months. That and the fact that he was hailed as the strongest genin of this generation. Sasuke stared at them. "What's so special about the Byakugan anyway?" I always heard their dojutsu being compared to my clan's Sharingan. Naruto answered, the Sharingan can follow quick movements and perhaps even predict the next move within the few next steps of the next few seconds when mastered. It gives you an advantage to counter practically any attack. The Byakugan, on the other hand, can not only see in great distance and almost complete 360 perspective, but also chakra. In fact, the Jukin are extremely good at destroying chakra. While the Sharingan can copy just about anything that they see, as the dojutsu gave them something similar to hyperthermia, perfect memory, the Byakugan are able to destroy even a jutsu since they can see chakra. In fact, the Jukin was perfected to do just that. Without the Byakugan, the technique can go past physical barriers such as skin and muscles to attack the vulnerable organs directly. With the Byakugan, however, it can even destroy the chakra coils of their opponent. When it comes to depth of perception, the Byakugan is far better than Sharingan. Sakura frowned. Destroy jutsu? How does that even work? Naruto went into Minato Sensei Onagai mode number 1, a patient smile on his lips, a fist on his hip, and a finger pointing up to the sky. Well, the Byakugan can see chakra, and when I say that, it means that it can see any structure created by chakra, which includes more than just the human body. The Hyuga might seem like a taijutsu expert only since they didn't practice much else, but since they can destroy any ninjutsu attack with just a poke of their finger, it is a good enough reason to not learn anything else. Now, you might think that the elements in ninjutsu is something that cannot be stopped as they are elements, and that only a counter element can stop it. In reality, in the eyes of the Byakugan, those elements are nothing more than chakra construct. No matter how solid something is, if it is made of chakra, a Hyuga who mastered their Byakugan and Jukin can easily destroy it by finding the weak point of said chakra construct. Neji tried this on the bridge back in Nami, but he was new at it, so he couldn't exactly find the exact point of weakness in Haku's mirrors. Kakashi nodded. Exactly. It is why the Hyuga and the Uchiha were often at each other's neck. The Uchiha are expert of long-distance offense, while the Hyuga are expert of close-distance offense. The Uchiha are expert of close-distance defense, while the Hyuga are expert of long-distance defense. Whenever these two clans meet in battle, they always ended up in a stalemate. He looked at Naruto. You know a lot. Naruto shrugged. I heard a story from Ero Sennin about a rogue, one-eyed, distant Hyuga descendant who gave both Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Shisui trouble when they were sent to capture him. The man might have only one functioning Byakugan, but the fact that he gave two genius Uchiha trouble should have put his name in history. His mastery of the Byakugan was such that he could cut a Katon Jutsu attack into two without receiving any damage despite barely knowing any Jukin. Pity he was a traitor, and that was a distant relative of the Hyuga, with only one functioning Byakugan. While Naruto was explaining this and that to his team, Hinata noticed that Neji was faster than her. His training with Might Guy, an eccentric but well-respected taijutsu expert that even her clan's elder acknowledged, shine in their match. He had been holding back when sparring with her at their clan's dojo. She grimaced, the tenketsu points in her arms closed one by one, negating most of her direct attack on Neji's own tenketsu. She didn't even notice that he had purposefully allowed her to slip past his defense to close her arms tenketsu. Hinata pulled back, bruised and battered, her arms completely useless with her chakra channels in them blocked. She gulped as she tried to open those channels one by one. She looked at Neji, who unblocked her successful attacks while lazily made his way to her. He sneered down at her and said, "Give up." She shook her head. "Never." Neji growled, and suddenly, she couldn't keep track of his movements. His hit grew harsher and harder. She barely kept up to block him. Then pain stabbed through her chest as she fell. Her eyes saw a glint of hatred in Neji's gaze as his next strike aimed for her heart. Hinata tried to move to block him, but her arms were in too much pain from his strikes. In the end, she couldn't do anything as death crept closer in the hand of the boy she called brother. Hinata didn't fear him more than sad for him. It seemed that, despite all her training, she was still too weak to reach him. A familiar smell reached her, and a familiar warmth greeted her back. She blearily looked up to see Naruto's blue gaze glowing as he glared at Neji. She thought she heard him growl as he bared his fangs as her cousin. Hinata wondered, 𝐻𝐸𝐵 had she grown stronger in his eyes? Had she grown from the timid girl of their childhood? Had she become the kunoichi he saw in her? Naruto looked to see blood dribbling from the corner of her lips. His eyes widened, and it felt as if his blood had changed to icy glacier. He felt sluggish as time seemed to slow. He weakly called out, "Hinata!" Her heart. "He can't hear? Move to Naruto!" Minato's voice broke through his daze. "Naruto, you need to let the medics see her. Let her go." Naruto gasped and looked up to see pale-faced medics looking at him. He realized that he was holding onto Hinata and was growling at the medics approaching him. He shook his feral instinct and forced his reluctant body to let her go with the medics. He swallowed his wine as he stood up and watched her being worked on. He held his breath as they pulsed right on her chest. Once, twice, there, a heartbeat. He breathed and felt faint as they gathered her to move her to the hospital. As his blood warmed his body once more, he noticed her blood that had smeared his hand. He looked up to Neji, who only glared coldly as the medic took Hinata away. He moved when the Jounin proctor ordered him to leave the arena. He felt tense, and there was an itch under his skin. His hidden ears were pinned to his skull, and his tails were bristling as he drew closer to Neji. Why? He knew that Hinata was trying to prove her worth, not to her clan, but to Neji. She held that boy high in her heart. Yet Naruto caught Neji's eyes. It was arrogant and cold, very much unlike Hinata's gaze, proud but warm. In her clan of winter, she was the only spring. If they were steel, she was ember. Naruto raised his bloody fist and growled at Neji. "This is my oath for Hinata. I'm kicking your ass in the final. Words won't reach him? Fine. Naruto will feed him with his fist." Realization. Naruto looked up at the building that Karin was staying at. He happened to like his little home, but it would be too intimate for him to live with her. So the Hokage was generous enough to prepare a modest apartment for her. As he walked up the steps, he looked at the packet of soba noodles in his hands. It was a housewarming gift, and he hoped she liked it. He made it himself after all. Thanks to spending time in Min no Kuni. Not much to do there while waiting for Jiraiya to complete his spy work besides helping the host family make their noodles for sale. He can only review 𝐤𝐢𝐴 mentally so much before his head go cuckoo. Naruto, being an Uzumaki, was a physical person after all. Even with his father's influence, he preferred to move his body more than exercise his brain. On the plus side, the locals saw him as the host family's mascot, increasing their udon noodles sale. Karin opened the door a second after he knocked on her door. Naruto greeted her. "Good morning, Karin. This soba is for you." She smiled and accepted his gift. "Ano, are you going to visit Hinata?" Naruto blinked. "I'll try, but if she's in the ICU, then I can't." Karin pursed her lips before asking, "Can I come along?" Naruto studied her for a moment before nodding. "Sure." She smiled at his acceptance. "Thanks. Wait a moment while I put this in the fridge." A few minutes later, she walked beside him through Konoha. The past few days were surreal. She just received news that she had been handed over to Konoha by Kusa's government. She felt elated for being free from the stupid village, although a part of her felt sad that she can no longer visit her mother's grave. She mentioned this to Naruto, and Naruto thought about it. Asked Minato about his thought, and said, "I could send a request to have her body sent to Konoha." Karin looked at him. "You would do that?" He nodded. "I'm your clan head after all. It is my right, Databeo." Karin pursed her lips before grinning with wet eyes. "Thank you." Naruto found Ino's florist and entered the shop. He looked around and perused the flowers, wondering which one would be good to send to Hinata. Karin looked around too before taking note of the cards. She decided to help Naruto by looking through them. Ino stepped into the store from the back. "Welcome, Naruto." She greeted him before asking, "Are you here to buy flowers for Hinata? Want my help?" Naruto turned her, thinking about her offer, before nodding. "Please. Do you know if she's allowed to have visitor, or?" Ino shook her head. "Sorry, Naruto." He sighed. "All right." Ino looked around before smiling. "Well, we have hydrangeas in store. It means perseverance, so it is a good flower to give to someone sick." Naruto looked at the selected flowers and chose the colors that he knew Hinata like. He then looked at the dwarf sunflowers. Smiling, he chose them to break the monotony of purples. He picked out sunny yellows and shades of oranges. Then he looked at the types of papers to wrap it up in. He chose simple shades of creme and soft lavender to complete the bouquet. He looked at Ino. "Can you wrap them up for me?" Ino smiled. though inside she was a little envious. Boys normally shy away from anything girly, like flowers, but not Naruto. In fact, watching him choosing the flower carefully to bring to Hinata made her wonder if she will ever have a boy that will do the same for her one day. As she worked on the bouquet, Karin approached Naruto with a few cards. Naruto. He looked at her and noticed the cards in her hand. He grinned. "Good idea, Karin." Karin smiled. "Thank you. I just thought that some encouraging words from you would do wonder for Hinata. After all, you mean a lot to her." Naruto blinked and blushed under his mask. You think so?" Karin looked at him. "What wrong?" Naruto sighed. "Hinata, I heard her asking me if she met my expectation or something along that line. What if it was because of me that she ended up hurt? I mean, I always told her that I believe in her strength, that she can be the kind and strong kunoichi that she dreamed of. And I didn't lie. It isn't easy to strive to be better, especially when your greatest weakness is yourself. When I saw her again, I felt proud of her." He smiled. "She was so strong in my eyes. Maybe because of that I was blind. Stop." He looked at Karin for her sudden sharp word. "Huh?" Karin sighed. "Naruto, if you start doubting her when she had gone so far to be better, then there is nothing more insulting and more painful to her than that. If you doubt her, then you betray her. It's like telling her that she will never amount to anything. So," she smiled at him, "don't ever tell her those things you told me, because then it will really make her cry. That's how much power your words have on her." Naruto stared at her before looking at the cards in her hand. He picked out one with red maple leaves. Autumn was the season he was brought into this world. He smiled at Karin. "Thank you. Guess I really need to hear that." He pulled out his brush, one he carried always with a bottle of ink for his Fuinjutsu. He wrote his get well message to Hinata and noted down that he believed in her, because he knew enough about her family to know that they only ever expect perfection and would not give her any encouragement when she failed. It was the curse of having an elite family. Perfection was the norm and failure was a sin. It was why her confidence took a strong hit when they were younger, as she could never be fast enough to reach that expected perfection. While those like Neji smoothly advance, Hinata took her time to fully understand each step until she can do it in her coma. Something that none of her family member understood. He completed the short message of faith and encouragement with a small caricature of a fox that he once doodled in her notebook. Hinata was a little upset that he drew in her otherwise pristine notes. But then she smiled and added a heart near the funny fox. Since then, he would do his best to sneak in the caricature into her work just to see her smile and giggle. Ino returned and looked at the card, adding that. Naruto nodded. "Yeah." Ino finished everything and handed him the bill with a brilliant business smile. He left the florist with a lighter gamachan. Though he was a little sad at his lessened income, he didn't regret it. He smiled at the bouquet, wondering how Hinata will look like when she saw the flowers and the message. Karin saw what little expression she can see under his mask and thought that it was sweet of him. She wondered when the two will realize what they feel for the other and confess. Karin privately promised to cheer them on. Inside the seal, Minato suddenly felt like someone just joined his little Naruhina club. He whispered with a grin, "Yash." Naruto poked at him. ? Minato chuckled. "Nothing." A little confused and smidge suspicious, Naruto left the QB alone. Instead, he made his way to the hospital and listened to Karin talk about the deep cleaning that she had yet to complete for her little apartment. Luckily, there wasn't anything hazardous like black fungus or pink slime in wet areas. Even Naruto won't know what to do with that. Those things were stubborn with capital S. As they reached the entrance of the hospital, Naruto noticed Shino with a small bouquet of his own. A simple bouquet of peonies surrounded with baby breathes. Naruto felt an itch and this sudden desire to eat those flowers. He knew that was a silly thing to do, and so shook it off. Instead, he greeted the Aburame. Shino paused and looked at Naruto. "You notice me." Naruto blinked, looking at Karin before looking around in confusion. "Why won't I?" Shino stared at him. "Normally people don't. The reason why is frustratingly unknown." Naruto studied him before nodding. "I see. Maybe because you have an extra weak presence? I'm just sensitive though." Shino nodded before looking at Karin, who tensed at his attention. "And this is?" Naruto introduced them. "This is Uzumaki Karin, my relative." Karin, this 𝐵𝐴𝐵 Shino, Hinata's teammate. He then looked at Shino. Are you here for Hinata? Shino nodded. And 𝐫𝐞. The reason why is because he got injured during the prelim. Naruto blinked. Oh yeah, I forgot. Shino stared at him before continuing his way to the hospital. How selective of your memory, Naruto. Karin turned her face away, trying hard not to laugh. Also, Shino's chakra felt very lively. She did watch the prelim from the corner of teams that didn't make it. She didn't see her own former team anywhere, but didn't question much. She didn't need their harassment to ruin a possible chance at freedom and happiness. So she know that Shino's clan have parasitic micro beetles living inside them. Normally, one would think of it as creepy or disgusting. But for Karin, it felt like he was containing tiny little stars inside him. It made her want to giggle. Shino smoothly guided Naruto through the hospital halls for the shinobi wing. The hospital was divided into two, civilian wing and shinobi wing. It was to make the flow of patient easier. Naturally, the shinobi wing have extra busy emergency bay, while the civilian wing seldom have much people in there. The worst case for civilians were head injuries or dangerously high fever. Meanwhile, shinobi have the usual blunt force trauma, psychological trauma, or simply the loss of limbs. The morgue in the shinobi wing was also bigger and better secured. Naruto was glad that Hinata wasn't stuck behind the intensive care unit as Shino took him to single-room ward. Shino nodded at the Hyuga standing guard, someone Naruto recognized to be Hinata's usual minder, Ko. Ko eyed their bouquets before nodding and stepping aside, allowing them entry. Opening the door, Naruto caught sight of Hinata sleeping. Ko explained, she is still tired from yesterday's surgery. Her heart had stopped twice more before they stabilized her. She is still under observation, just in case her heart stopped again. Naruto paled at the implication of that. He gulped and nodded. Thank you. We won't be long. As they stepped in, he looked at Hinata's pale face. His ears strained to hear her heart beating in her chest, his eyes staring to make sure that she was breathing from the rise and fall of her chest. Shino placed the flower on her table and stared at her. He shook his head, saying softly. 𝐫𝐞 tried to discourage her, saying that if she was paired against either that boy with the gourd or her cousin, she should forfeit. But Hinata, after watching her fight, she only grew more determined. He looked at Naruto. I am not blaming you. The reason why is because that was her decision and thus not your fault. Naruto placed his bouquet on the table beside her. He nodded. I know. Shino then admitted, I am a little frustrated. Hinata, she is a hard worker and always looking at the horizon. I always wondered what it was that she was training for and what it was that she was chasing. When you appear, it made a lot of sense. Hinata, she is happier now that you are back. The reason why is because now that you are here, she spoke highly of you to us and revealed how she wanted to be famous enough that no matter where you are in the world, you will hear her name on the wind. Naruto bit his lips before smiling. I see. Iruka must have told her that he left to grow stronger. She didn't know when he will be back and where he went. So the only thing she can do to reach him was to be strong enough that no matter where he goes, he will hear about her. He reached up and touched her pale face. Her cheek was soft, and he smiled as her head turned to his touch even in her sleep. He brushed his knuckles softly, watching her with a warmth and soft feeling in his chest. Hinata had always been important to him, his most precious friend, the only other person in Konoha that he would return for. As long as she was here, the cage called the village would feel less suffocating. He endured the oddly claustrophobic feel of being inside the village because of her and her scent in the wind that reached him. With her, the invisible chain around him felt less heavy, and sometimes he barely noticed it. Minato once told him that his mother endured the cage called Konoha because of him. Naruto blinked, realizing something. He pulled away from him, watching the slight furrow of her brow at the loss of his touch. He smiled, trying not to let his racing heart be heard by her, even in her dream. He nodded at Shino. Thank you for telling me that. I had missed her presence when I was on that journey. She is the reason I could bear thinking of coming back. After he's separate from Shino, who decided to visit 𝐫𝐞 in the lower wing, he walked through Konoha with Karin. Karin watched him, trying to understand what she was feeling from his chakra. She liked Naruto's chakra, and it was why she wanted to spend as much time around him as possible. But she also noticed that Naruto kept himself apart from the people of Konoha. His mask kept a secret of more than just his face. That was what she felt. When she watched him watch Hinata at the ward, she felt that Naruto felt more than just simple friendly affection for Hinata. He was only ever flustered and shy around her. From the few days spent around him, he wasn't an open person, even with his teammate. Sure, Naruto talked a lot, but it was never anything about him. Naruto looked at her. "You hungry?" Karin opened her mouth, but her stomach growled instead, answering for her. She blushed as Naruto chuckled. She pouted. "Shut up." He shrugged. "There is this place I really like going. Come on." She followed him, and as the crowd around them thinned, well, thinner from when they parted at seeing Naruto's mask and glaring at him though he couldn't see them, she decided to ask, "Do you like Hinata?" He stumbled and almost face-plant from her direct questioning. Fortunately, he caught himself and blushed. "What make you say that?" Karin sighed, rolling her eyes. "I have eyes, you know. Also, I'm a pretty good sensor. I can feel all sorts of things from just feeling your chakra. And when you were looking at her, She blushed. "Your chakra is very bright, normally, but it was as if the sun decided to glow 100 times brighter whenever she's around. Not to mention, her chakra felt like spring around you." She wasn't breaking any girl code, whatever that mean, since she didn't out at Hinata. But she could be cryptic and give hints. Naruto rubbed his neck, warm from both the heat in his blood and the sun heating up his hair. He thought about the revelation he had from hearing about his mother's time as Kyuubi's jinchuriki and his father's role in her life, and how that coincided with him and Hinata. He sighed, "I don't know." Karin stared at him, her eyes narrowed. I'm not buying that." Naruto smiled and continued on his way. "Well, I do like Hinata, but I don't think like is what you want to hear. How shall she put this?" Naruto was probably both the sharpest guy and the dullest guy she have ever met in her life. He was a literal walking, talking, and breathing contradiction. Or maybe he just didn't feel comfortable enough with her to start talking about feelings. Guys, from what she heard from the gossiping nurse of the hellhole they called hospital in Kusa, can be weird like that. Why can't they just be direct? Meanwhile, Naruto was having an internal crisis. Did he like Hinata as more than a friend? Did he like her in the same scope his mother felt for his father when she was in his shoes? Naruto didn't know. The things he felt for Hinata, it felt more complex than that, but at the same time, dare he simplify it into something as simple as love? Hinata was important to him. If he came to the wrong conclusion, won't it harm their friendship? He couldn't lose her. Not to anything. He already felt that fear once when her heart stopped beating at the tower in the forest of death. He had felt fear before. He had brushed with death more times than he cared, following Jiraiya everywhere, even into the heart of war. He had felt the fear of not doing enough when he was helping refugees escape from their raided home. He had felt all sorts of fear, but losing Hinata, that was no kind of fear he ever wanted to feel ever again. After separating from Karin and promising to help her with getting things for her apartment when he was free, Naruto made his way back home. Taking off his mask and looking at his scroll of 𝐫𝐞𝐪𝐮𝐞 in preparation for the final, he looked at his hand. The one that made a blood oath for Hinata. He had never felt such fury before, the kind that made him tremble. And seeing her lying in her bed at the hospital made him feel helpless in a different manner from when he helped the refugees escape their war-torn home. Naruto sat down at the table to review on the Uzumaki Taijutsu special. He pushed all thoughts of Hinata and terror and fury aside. Instead, he meditated to keep a calm mind. These thoughts, he can visit them at a different time. He needed to keep a promise, after all. Forbidden knowledge. It was just another day in Konoha. Naruto was walking with Karin, showing her around. She had noticed the cold and pathetic reception of the villagers towards Naruto. Although they were kind enough with her when she buys things from them on her own, she will also receive ominous warning to stay away or leave Naruto. Karin memorized which shops did that, so that she didn't have to return to them in the future. She won't leave Naruto. He wasn't just her family. He was also her clan head, even if there were only 2 of them. He pulled out 2 pieces of shikigami, as he said, and this is Konoha's famous hot spring and spa. The massage here is apparently very good. Karin watched as he threw the papers into the air. The 2 pieces of flimsy paper remarkably stiffened and flew ahead. Naruto continued, Anyway, be careful when you take a dip here. The place might be owned by a retired kunoichi and her merchant husband, but that still won't discourage determined perverts. In particular, Karin jolted when she heard someone screaming, "Damn it, Naruto!" Naruto gestured before them at a tall man with wild white hair and kabuki-style fashion hopping around on his clogs, trying to keep the swarm of papers from cutting his face. Jiraiya, also known as Sannin no Jiraiya. He might be a respected sage, but he is also a proud self-proclaimed super pervert. So you can just call him Ero-Sennin. It is the truth after all. Jiraiya hopping around ended up with him slipping into the river not far from the hot spring. He screamed as he fell in, "Damn you, Naruto!" There was a loud splash as Naruto lazily made his way over the bridge and stared dryly at the famous shinobi doing his best to not drown in the water, canceling his Shikigami attacks. He waited patiently for Jiraiya to complete his mission of climbing out of the river before huffing and puffing on dry land. Thin streaks of red revealed that he did get cut by Naruto. He glared at Naruto. "Is that really the way to greet your great master?" Naruto blinked. "You're just a foolish old pervert. There is nothing great about you, Databeo." Jiraiya grumbled something nasty before climbing to his feet. "So, you made the Chunin final. Congratulations on that. Also," he looked at Karin. "Nice score. You work fast." He leered with a thumbs up. Before Karin could retaliate, Naruto punched the man straight through his stomach. Jiraiya coughed, and it echoed through the space of Konoha. Gebo! This was followed with a swift and vicious uppercut that threw him to the sky and back. Jiraiya screamed, once again his pain echoing all over Konoha. Gek! Karin watched as the old pervert crashed against the fence surrounding the hot spring building. Naruto sighed and shook his head as an old woman started beating the still, wheezing Jiraiya with a broom. "You dirty brat. You again. Oh, you made me mad." Naruto looked at Karin. Since you wish to learn Fuinjutsu as part of being an Uzumaki, this pervert is the better learned. He can help guide you through the basic. Although he gestured drilly at the sage still being hit by a broom. He is actually surprisingly reliable, Databeo. Surprisingly, Jiraiya finally escaped the furious old woman, wincing in pain and pulling out the random bits of hay from his wild kabuki hair. "Naruto, you don't have to say surprisingly twice. What will she think of me?" Naruto dryly answered. "A pervert." Jiraiya grimaced. "Well, you are not wrong. But still." He looked at Karin. "I'm glad you find your family, though. If only." He thought of another redhead that had long passed away in bitter remembrance. He then smiled kindly at Karin. "Now, my name is Jiraiya, the Gallant. No matter what Naruto say, I'm glad to meet you." Karin warily stepped back despite answering. Uzumaki Karin. Jiraiya didn't miss the step back. "Ano, Karin-chan. I'm a pervert, true, but I have standard. I don't go after kids, even one as cute as you." That only made Karin stare at him even more suspiciously, making scoot back another inch away from Jiraiya. "I see." Jiraiya sighed. "Look what you did, Naruto. You scared her." Naruto's monotone voice answered. "I don't have to do anything. Any sane woman will find you scary. You dirty old man." Jiraiya pursed his lips, glaring balefully at Naruto. He then sighed and stretched his arms. "Anyway, what are you looking for me for?" Naruto answered. "I want a perfect Kyoturyu to face Jukin." Jiraiya blinked. "That will be hard. You will have to move faster than the Byakugan can keep up. Even though its prowess in keeping up battle isn't as refined as the Sharingan, it can still be an advantage over you." Naruto smiled. "I know. If I defeat Neji while being under such a disadvantage, then maybe our words will reach that stuck-up ass." He grumbled. "Destiny this, fate that. What? Is he a shinobi or a fortune teller?" Jiraiya hummed. "You are talking about cramming the taijutsu of a technique barely anyone know in a month to face against a Jukin student that have practiced the art for all their life. You really are a gambler, Naruto," he grinned. "Well, the true purpose of the exam isn't about winning anyway." "Sure, I'll help." Naruto then gestured at Karin. "She want to learn some Fuinjutsu too." Jiraiya blinked. "I see. Well, let's get you started on the basic calligraphy." Karin blinked back. "Calligraphy?" Jiraiya grinned. "The most basic of basic for Fuinjutsu is beautiful and neat handwriting that won't tremble no matter the turbulence or time limit." Karin was already hating it, all right? A few days later found Naruto back at the hospital, with a bouquet of similar flowers. He liked the unique combination of serene purples with passionate orange. It felt like him and Hinata. In his other hand was a box of cinnamon rolls. He didn't buy much, just 2. He bet even the ever-kind and adaptable Hinata hate the bland hospital food. He get that they needed to make the food as healthy as possible. But draining all flavors from the food really wasn't it. Flavor, Naruto learned, was the second step of eating. The first was scent, and the third was visual. Why did visual fell in third place? Because ultimately, people barely care about how good a food looked like if they smelled wrong or tasted weird. A food can look ugly, but if they smelled delicious, they were already winning. The flavor was the crown of it all. Naruto pushed all thoughts of food, flavors, and other random thoughts as he made his way into the hospital. He hated the smell of hospital, but he will endure it for Hinata. He nodded at Ko and asked, "Good evening, Ko-san. Is Hinata-chan all right?" Ko stared at Naruto. The man didn't know what to make of the masked boy, especially with his choice in fashion. Wearing so much fox motifs was just asking for trouble with the local. Still, it was obvious that he wasn't seeking attention if his silent nature was anything to go by. If anything, there seemed to be a deeper underlying meaning to his fashion choice. Ko looked at the things in the boy's hand. Nothing suspicious. He nodded after a moment. She wakes up more and more often, meaning she was getting better. Naruto smiled at him. That is good. Ko stepped aside and allowed Naruto entry. Naruto gave him a polite shallow bow and entered the room. He found Hinata still in bed, but unlike the other time he was here, there was a flush of red on her cheeks. Smiling at the sight of a healthier Hinata, he stepped closer and changed the old bouquet to a new one, complete with a new card of encouragement. He also placed the box of cinnamon rolls on the table. He looked at Hinata and said, "You look better today." "I'm glad." She even smelled better underneath the annoying scent of hospital. He sat on the chair and stared at her. He reached out one finger and poked at her soft cheek. He grinned a little as her lips pursed from the sensation. After that, he spent a few moments to play around, poking her cheek, tapping the tip of her nose, tracing her brows, lightly touching her lashes, and brushing back her soft hair. She softly whined from him messing with her. Naruto chuckled. Okay, I'll stop messing around." She was so cute. He pulled out a scroll to pass the time while accompanying her. Hinata continued to sleep, her breathing soft and calming. He found that he focused better being closer to her, so when it was time to leave, he loathed the very idea, but know that he can't cause problem for her. Besides, Ko will definitely chase him out, so he sealed away his scroll and looked at Hinata. He bid her goodnight, sweet dreams, Hinata-chan. On a whim and without thinking, he leaned over and kissed her brow. Only after he left did he feel the tingle on his lips. His cheeks burned as his heart skipped around. He felt like that time he somehow ended up hiding in an opium den for over an hour from a group of IWA shinobi. He was high the whole evening, and it was a miracle he even found the hideaway that Jiraiya told him. The next morning was hell for his head despite Minato's aid at detoxing his system. But this time, rather than making him feel nauseous or causing him to feel like he was on an acid trip, Naruto felt wide awake. He barely stopped himself from skipping. "What are you so happy about?" Naruto looked to see Shikamaru eyeing him. He nodded. "Hey, who are you here for?" Shikamaru sighed, raising the basket of fruits. "I thought I should ease up on Chuji's hospital diet with some fruits. It's healthy enough despite being sweet, isn't it?" Unfortunately, he's still on a strict hospital diet, so this was a bust. So I thought I should leave it for Lee. Naruto remembered the horrifying end to Lee's spar with Gaara. Lee was a little too hot-headed for his own good. He was fortunate that Gaara didn't just outright kill him. Or rather, guys stepped in before Gaara can be killed. Still, was it really a blessing? After all, he heard that there was no chance for his body to return to being healthy enough to be a shinobi, and considering how he can't mold chakra for ninjutsu or jinjutsu, he only have taijutsu, and without that, his shinobi career will meet an end. And he was just starting out too. Naruto hummed. That was neither good nor bad. Shikamaru nodded. "Yeah, I thought that this should at least cheer him up." Though the nurses and doctors were annoyed with him, from what I overheard. He was stubborn and kept training despite the order to rest, so they have been sedating him. Naruto frowned. Training despite order to rest is not going to fix him. I get that he's frustrated, and training his body is his favorite thing to do. But still, if he keep going like this, he'll just destroy his body, Databayo. Training was actually the act of breaking and healing the body to grow stronger. But if he didn't rest, his body won't have time to rebuild their broken parts. Naruto had once met a guy who kept training without resting only to end up peeing his muscles and then fall into a coma before dying. By that point, no one could save him. There was a reason why masters insisted that resting was part of training. If Lee kept going down this path, he might permanently destroy his body, chakra or no. They were reaching Lee's room when he smelled something. He grabbed Shikamaru's arm. The other boy turned to him to complain when he saw Naruto's pursed lips. Naruto signaled him to stay quiet before quietly making his way to the room ahead of them. Shikamaru frowned as that was Lee's room. He slowly followed Naruto from behind and barely avoided the sudden flurry of movement as papers flew into the room. When he finally saw the commotion, his eyes widened at seeing Gaara hovering near an unconscious Lee's bed. Seal Tag shielded Lee behind a barrier as Naruto calmly asked, "What do you think you are doing?" Shikamaru scowled. He's already defeated. "So why are you doing this?" Gaara frowned as his sands failed at going through the barrier of the seals that Naruto placed around Lee's bed. He looked at Naruto. "The real question here is, what do you think you are doing, freak?" Naruto kept his calm. "I am doing what a Konoha shinobi always do, defend our own. That is the legacy of the will of fire." Gaara sneered. "Your own? You are nothing but just a property of Konoha. Even that boy behind you have more autonomy and freedom. Why do you bow your head when you are just like me? Why do you even bother to protect them when you can make them cower before you? How do you even proof your existence if all you did is beg for their mercy?" Shikamaru frowned and looked at Naruto. Other than the slight shift of his clothes and hair, Naruto was still. Gaara continued, "I can tell. They sealed a demon inside you just as they sealed a demon inside me. When did they did it to you?" "Mine was before I was even born." When Naruto didn't answer, he added, "But it isn't enough to seal a demon in me. My own father decided that I am imperfect. He feared his own creation enough that he kept sending in people to kill me. Since this world deny me for existing, then I will force them to acknowledge me." Naruto finally said, "So you spread fear?" Gaara smirked. "So I spread fear because fear is the only way they will see me and admit I exist. Even my name meant self-loving demon. So I will love myself more than anything else. It is how I grew to be so strong. That is why, Kyuubi, let me kill you to prove that I have the right to exist." Shikamaru clenched his jaw at the revelation. He looked at Naruto and taking in the sight of all the fox motives on his person. He didn't understand much of what was said, only that a demon was sealed inside Naruto, and he was called Kyuubi. What did it all mean? Naruto calmly answered, "If that is your wish, then be patient. Killing me when there is no witness beside the one behind me. Won't that be waste?" Shikamaru stared at him. Naruto smiled, too calm and too still. "I am the Kyuubi. Won't you want to show the world how much stronger the Ichibi is to the Kyuubi? So, let them live and look forward to our battle in the Chunin final." Gaara stared at him, tilting his head slightly before saying, "Yes, mother." He pulled all the strands of sands in the space around them back into his gourd before saying, "Then, be prepared to die, Uzumaki Naruto." He disappeared in a flurry of sand. Shikamaru melted to his knees, his bones jelly from the tension and the clear presence of death that Gaara commanded. He breathed hard before gulping and asked, "What did he mean when he called you Dash?" Naruto cut him off. "Stop. That information you just learned is a high-ranked classified information." He looked at Shikamaru. "You can speak with your father, but no one else. Not even Chuji. Breaking that rule will lead to execution." He gestured and the seal around Lee's bed disappeared. He then pulled out pieces of blank seal papers and started writing, "I'm going to place a special seal around his room. If Gaara decided to return and finished what he started, the barrier will protect Lee and interact with the hospital siren to call reinforcement. Just to be safe, it will react to a high level of killing intent." It wasn't known much, but the reason shinobi can control their killing intent was because it was actually a subtle psychological manipulation of yin chakra in the air, like a lucid genjutsu. After he completed the tags, he plastered it around the four corners of the room. He then looked at a still curious and confused Shikamaru. "Please inform Gai-sensei when you see him. Ah, please tell him not to move Lee, because I already secured the room against further attempt to assassinate Lee. Shikamaru climbed onto his wobbly legs with a groan. Sure, I'll do that. Naruto finally smiled. Thank you. Now, excuse me. I have to go and inform the Hokage. Shikamaru watched as Naruto left the hospital. He placed the fruit basket on Lee's table before making a creepy walk home. He kept jumping at shadows and the movements over the roofs. Oddly enough, he wasn't afraid of Naruto or what he just learned. He knew about the Kyuubi that attacked Konoha. Who doesn't? Still, he feared Gaara more than Naruto. When he reached home, his father Shikaka asked, "Shikamaru, why are you wet?" He didn't notice just how much he sweated in fear as he shakily made his way home. He gulped and said, "Did you know about Naruto?" Shikaka put aside his scroll and focused on his son. What happened? Shikamaru gulped a few more times and timidly made his way to his father. For once since deciding that he's too old for cuddles, he sought out his father's comforting safety. Shikaku was a little surprised but gathered his trembling boy close. It was only after a while leaning into the man that Shikamaru explained what had happened. Shikaka listened before sighing. "Shikamaru, you're lucky Naruto was there. After all, only a jinchuriki can counter a jinchuriki." He noticed Shikamaru's curious expression and explained that dark side of their reality, leaving the boy to later toss in his bed with the forbidden knowledge for the rest of the month, sometimes catching sight of Naruto walking through the village that hated him. Normal. Mastering the Kyoto within a month wasn't easy, but Naruto have a cheat up his sleeves that can hasten his training. It might not translate physically, but his body will gain the memory of it. What else but the only training style that he's someone with a mix of Uzumaki chakra and the Kyuubi's chakra can do. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He created hundreds of them to train in every move of the Kyoto, to have them understand the theory behind each movements, while he conditioned his body with what little he knew. This also meant that at the end of his day, he was dead on his feet. So he will only cancel the technique after he visited Hinata. Somehow, he always saw her asleep. Because of the heart injury, they needed her as relaxed as possible, so she was often under sedative. But that was alright, because whenever she woke up and saw the things he left behind, the bouquet and the box of cinnamon rolls kept fresh by his seal, she would leave him little messages of thanks to let him know that she knew of his visits. Pity his schedules and hers meant missing each other, but the little note she left behind was enough to ease his stress. He was yawning as he walked through the quieter street of Konoha, the brook bubbling alongside his right, as he had decided to rest for that day and planned a series of seals to face Gaara. He had been working with Minato to deal with that. But Naruto think better when moving rather than sitting. So here he was walking down the streets with his head spinning from this seal matrix to that seal matrix. Naruto looked up to see Sakura sitting on a grass looking at the river. He stopped and nodded. "Hey, what are you doing?" Sakura sighed. "Nothing much, really. I've been doing nothing," she slumped. She then looked up at him. "Hey, can we talk?" Minato insisted that he stop before he go Fuinjutsu crazy. So Naruto joined her with person-wide distance between them. He asked, "So, how was your week?" Sakura laid down on the grass. "Boring, and my mom wanted me to stop being kunoichi," she pouted. "I don't want to stop." He looked at her. "I see." Sakura sighed. "She got so worried seeing me all injured. I get it, really, especially after the Forest of Death. I didn't tell her anything, of course. She was just a civilian, and shinobi stuff is always hush-hush. My dad was a genin, but he decided to drop out and continue his family's business instead." Naruto asked, "What sort of business?" Sakura smiled. "Oh, we own a small fresh grocery. I won't say I'm rich, but I'm certainly better off than most. My mom and dad wanted me to find someone wealthy to marry in. You know, typical family drama." Naruto shook his head. "Honestly, I won't. I mean, I only know the shinobi life since forever, Databeo." Sakura blinked. "You're an orphan?" Naruto nodded. "Yeah, something like that. His father was still around, but no one must know. The panic that people will have if they learn that their celebrated and beloved yondaime had replaced the Kyuubi would be hysterical." Sakura blushed. "Oh, sorry." Naruto shook his head. "Don't worry about it." He then asked, "Did you practice jinjutsu? I think you have talent there. You should train if you are determined to stay in this lifestyle. I'm sure you are aware now that it isn't for the weak-willed." Sakura bit her lips. Yeah, I get it. Never in my life did I imagine I'll get swallowed by a frog. Naruto grimaced. It's a toad. Actually, she shuddered. Even worse. Naruto. They looked up to see Karin running towards him, her face particularly pale. Naruto frowned and stood up as Sakura joined him. What is it? What happened? Karin burst into tears. There are cockroaches. Sakura turned green. Ew. Karin grabbed his sleeve. I hate cockroaches. I bet there are more if I found two. Sakura shuddered. Double EU. Naruto grimaced before thinking. Wait. Can you find Shino? Karin blinked. Why? He grinned. He's an 𝐵𝐴𝐵. He'll be able to help, I bet. Interested, Sakura joined the two Uzumaki as they hunt down Shino. Fortunately for them, Shino had also decided to take that day easy. He was surprised that Karin found him and for some reason looked flustered as she begged him to help her with her infestation problem. Never having been sought for anything outside mission, he eagerly agreed to help Karin. Minato chuckled. He must be lonely. 𝐵𝐴𝐵, due to their techniques and love for insects, were often avoided or ignored out of disgust and phobia. Because of this, most lived quite the lonely life outside mission, which was why they were also extremely loyal to anyone who didn't mind their lifestyle. Karin whimpered as she entered the apartment. She was slowly fixing the walls and windows, but when she was fixing the plumbing, she saw a few roaches scurrying about. She clung to Shino's back. Please get rid of them. I heard if you found one, there are hundreds more hiding around somewhere. Sakura peeked into the house and took note of how barren it was. Then again, Karin just moved in, and she will need to wait after Chunin exam to enter any team should she wish to be a kunoichi. In the meantime, Naruto had to give her allowances as her clan head. Luckily, Jiraiya pitched in to help, or neither could have survived the month. Shino cleared his throat. That is fine. I am glad that you called for me. The reason why is because all living things have a soul, and one must not kill things indiscriminately. I will use a technique of my family to summon them all out. He made some hand sign and called 𝐵𝐴𝐵 Hijitsu, conscious Shokin. At first there was silent. Then there was the sound of thousands of scuttering, shaking the wall of the apartment that also echoed throughout the whole building, puzzling the people in the apartment by the loud noises. It took a second for Naruto to realize something. I don't think he only called the ones in Karin's room, Databayo. Seconds after he said that, Sakura screamed along with Karin as a cloud of cockroaches appeared, bursting in from all corners and niches of the room, and flew out of her apartment in a black cloud. Naruto's Bijuu chakra naturally acted as a repellent as he stood on the side of the door outside the crowded apartment, stepping in front of Sakura so she won't end up eating those cockroaches from her screaming. Minato sweated at the scene. Oh dear. But after the fright was settled, there was no insects of any sort to be found in the building. Karin had hugged Shino's back the whole time the cloud of roaches flew around them. She whimpered. Are they all gone? 𝐫𝐞𝐽𝐻. She pulled away with a sigh. Thank goodness. She then pouted. You could at least not scare me like that. She then looked around. Where did they all come from anyway? Sakura looked at the walls. Maybe they were breeding inside the wall. Karin shuddered. Maybe. I'm not squeamish of insects normally, but roaches are just different, you know? They've been known to spread diseases and that smell. She then looked at Shino. Thank you for the help, Shino. Shino blinked at the sight of her bright smile and tucked his head deeper inside his high collar. Yeah. Sakura looked around. Do you need any help with the apartment? Karin looked at her. You'll help me? Sakura shrugged. I'm not art of the Chunin final, and I barely have anything to do. I could help at least this much. Karin grinned. Oh, thank you. I didn't want to bother Naruto too much because he's training and all. Not to mention, he need to kick that Niji's ass for hurting Hinata like that. She then scowled. What is his problem anyway? Aren't they family? Sakura nodded. Right? As the girls started fixing around the room, gossiping and dissing Niji for what he did to Hinata, Naruto looked at Shino. You okay? Your ears all red. Shino slapped his hands over his ears. No, they are not. Naruto tilted his head. Question mark. Later that day, he returned home. It seemed that Sakura had decided to help Karin settle in. He would have done more, but he needed to find a way to deal with Gaara and settle that thing with Niji. So, as he brushed his tails, he read up on Fuinjutsu scroll. These ones were more advanced and was brought from the ruins of Yuzushio. He was glad that he insisted to go there. He managed to unearth greater sealing scrolls from hidden niches and invisible seals that react only with Uzumaki chakra. He had brought them with him inside a special storage seal. He knew that he can seal Gaara. Like him, Gaara was the property of Suna. Sealing him could be seen as the act of stealing a national property. He didn't want war. Rather, he prayed to the sage that there will never be war while he still draw breath. After all, within 4 generations of Konoha, there were already 3 great wars. Konoha wasn't even a century old. He sighed and stretched his back. He then paused as he felt someone entering his home space. The invisible barrier he placed around his little home was a lot like the one around Konoha, so he knew the moment someone entered the perimeter of his home. Putting on his mask, he waited. "Naruto? Are you in?" Naruto opened the door to see Sasuke. He opened his door wider. "What's wrong?" Sasuke scowled and said, "Can we talk?" It seemed that so many people want to talk to him that day. Still, Naruto nodded and gestured in. "Come inside." It smelled like rain. He wasn't wrong. It smelled like it would start raining soon. Sasuke nodded and took off his shoes. "Pardon the intrusion." Naruto started on tea as Sasuke looked around the room. It was clean and orderly, although it looked like Naruto was studying something when he came. He also smelled a unique scent. He looked at the scented oil slowly being burned away by a dim candle in the corner by Naruto's weird bed. The house was small and compact, but cozy. Sasuke will privately admit that he was slightly jealous as it didn't feel as lonely as his own home. Tea. Sasuke turned to the kitchen corner and saw Naruto serving a pot of tea. It smelled like jasmine. Sasuke quietly joined him and accepted the plate of senbei biscuits. The savory taste balanced out with the gentle sweetness of jasmine. After a moment of enjoying the treat, he asked Naruto, "How was your training?" Naruto smiled. "Normal. Tiring." "You?" Sasuke sighed. "Kakashi trained me in Raidon, but I don't have enough chakra to go for more than 3 or I'll knock myself out from chakra exhaustion. I'm not sure if this will be enough to face Gaara, especially after what he did to Lee." Naruto nodded. "I see. Well, you don't have to win, actually." Sasuke frowned. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked. "What qualify a shinobi for promotion is chunin? Winning, isn't it? If you force yourself, you might win the fight, but you will lose the war. So think carefully on what you can do. Strength is more than just knocking your opponent down." He sipped his tea before saying, "There is more to a fight than just winning." Sasuke hummed, sipping his tea as he thought about it. Kakashi liked to be cryptic, and it was pissing him off. Naruto, on the other hand, will give him just enough to make up his own mind. Sasuke wondered if Jiraiya's teaching was the reason Naruto was so wise. In truth, Naruto was simply relying what Minato was telling him to. Minato knew that Sasuke won't be able to win against a jinchuriki. This match was against him from the get-go. Also, he thought that he should temper the typical Uchiha pride instead of letting him think that if he go on with his bullheadedness, he can win, as that could lead to his death. Sasuke sighed. "I need to get stronger." Naruto snorted. "You're a kid like me, Sasuke. Your strength will grow with you. If you're too impatient, you might break yourself before you can realize your ambition." Dadabayo. Sasuke scowled. Itachi was ANBU at age 13. He tightened his grip. "I'm still Genin." Naruto hummed. "Sasuke, ANBU is a place where broken shinobi goes. Things they did there, only someone who are numb can do." He looked at Sasuke. "I don't know what went wrong with Itachi, but whatever it was probably had something to do with being placed in ANBU at such a young age. I don't think you should chase after him like that." He frowned. "No kid should be in ANBU. Just look at Kakashi. He's a head case." Dadabayo. Sasuke looked at him. "You talk like you know about being in ANBU." Naruto's fingers twitched on his cup. "I was raised under ANBU guards." He drank the rest of his tea before snatching a senbei. "That said, most of those in ANBU are those with a death wish. It is the only way they can do those levels of fatal missions without any care for their own health or well-being. It was one of the traits sought out for ANBU recruits." He looked at Sasuke. "And you want to make a return to the Uchiha clan. I think you should focus on that while you prepare for your revenge on Itachi. Otherwise, you might make stupid decisions." Sasuke thought about Orochimaru's offer and how that would mean for his future endeavors for the return of his clan. He was tempted, until Naruto pointed out that accepting Orochimaru's offer meant giving up on rebuilding his clan. Was killing Itachi as soon as possible worth destroying that future? He then blinked. What do you mean you were raised by A and BU? Naruto shook his head, the cloud outside breaking into a torrent of rainwater. Not raised by. Raised under. There is a difference there. He started on dinner. You should stay over. The rainstorm is very heavy tonight. Sasuke frowned before asking, do you have anything I can change into? I want to shower. Naruto, leave to dug out some sleepwear here. And here's a new toothbrush and a towel. As Sasuke washed off the training grime from himself, he thought about what Naruto said. Could it really be that Itachi broke because he was an ANBU at this age? Sasuke shook his head, scowling. It wasn't impossible. He had seen retired shinobi who wasn't quite right in the head. In fact, the more they survived, the less sane they were. Not to mention, Naruto often hinted that Kakashi and most of the other Jounin weren't quite mentally well either. The more active they were, the more eccentric they became to deal with all the trauma of their work. After he wrapped the sleeping kimono around him, he brushed out his hair. He blinked at the sight of a pet brush. No, there were several different combs that he once saw sold at the Inuzuka veterinary. He stared at it in confusion. What? Did he have a pet? But when Sasuke stepped out of the bathroom, he noticed that there was no sign of an animal companion anywhere. He looked at Naruto, who had spread out a futon for him over the study area. He had also cleaned up his scrolls to make space for the futon. At the moment, Naruto was watching a sitcom on the television. It was an oddly cozy evening, and Sasuke thought that he should relax for the night. Naruto mentioned Sakura is having problem with her family. Sasuke joined him to watch the sitcom. What about? They want her to drop out and start helping with their shop. Sasuke blinked. She's civilian-born? Naruto handed him the plate of roasted seeds. You didn't know? Sasuke accepted the snack. Not really, Naruto snorted. You really should show more interest, Sasuke. You're gonna need a woman to have an Uchiha baby with Databeo. Inside, Minato chuckled at the tease. Sasuke blushed. Shut up. And it went on like that. It was just a simple evening watching sitcom, snacking on roasted sunflower seeds, and discussing about mundane, everyday life stuff. It was weird, Sasuke think, but it felt so normal. He can't remember the last time an evening felt so normal. Confess, tomorrow was the Chunin final. Naruto wasn't sure if he had done enough as preparation. He felt restless, and he was supposed to rest that final day so that he will be fresh and ready tomorrow. Still, he had the jitters. Minato sighed. Why don't you go visit Hinata? I think she should be released today. Naruto immediately got out of bed and showered at the very idea of seeing Hinata. Although the scented oil he made was the perfect imitation of Hinata's scent, it wasn't the same. The warmth of her was missing. In the end, he wanted the real Hinata and not just the scent. Putting on his mask, then his shoes, he left after locking up everything and activating the security seals. Naruto chose to go the high ground instead of walking. As he leaped over Konoha, he started thinking about things that he had pushed aside to focus on his training. He landed on a roof not far from the hospital and stared at the building. He still wasn't sure about this thing with Hinata. How did it begin? When and where did it start? Also, was it worth pursuing? His invisible tails twitched. He had been so anxious he couldn't contain them in a single tail. Whenever his mind drifted towards Hinata, his tails fanned out like a peacock's. He didn't want to believe that he felt romantic feelings for her. They were young. She wasn't even 13, and neither was he with a few more months to spare. So, how would they know anything about romance? At what age will one realize what others called love? At what age can such feelings be accepted as love? Minato's voice echoed. You are thinking too much, Naruto. Naruto sat down on the roof. This is something to be considered after all. You told me that something worth pursuing is worth deep consideration. Minato chuckled. That is true, and I am glad that you take my advice to heart. But Naruto, love is something that you will never know unless you dive head first, he then added. Besides, you already see her as something of worth. So much so that you are more careful than you have ever been in your life. Naruto frowned. But as I am, with my situation and my secrets, am I worthy for her? Minato hummed. That is something for her to decide. Like I said, relationship is not something you will find the answer to just by twiddling your thumbs. Naruto grumbled. But I don't want things to mess up between us. I dash. He sighed. Hinata, she dash. She's too important to me. If I was wrong, and if I mess up, losing her will be too hard, too painful. I don't want to lose her. Databeo, Minato sighed before asking. But can you imagine a world where you are the one outside, while she spent it in the arms of another? Naruto? Naruto froze. Minato chuckled. I know that people said that when you love something, you want them to be happy, even if the reason for that happiness isn't you. But Naruto, I know you. You and I are truly father and son. We are selfish. I couldn't bear to leave your mother's well-being in the hand of another, so I clawed my path to the hat so that I can be the one in charge of her well-being. It was the only way I could ensure that she is safe and cared for. Minato's dream for becoming Hokage was a simple dream. It started out the childish dream like any other child in Konoha. Everyone admired the Hokage. He was a child himself too. Then, as he grew, that dream shifted into wanting to protect his precious people. That dream evolved the moment Kushina became the Jinchuriki, stuck in the Hokage tower like a princess in a fairy tale. The only way to reach her was to climb the tower and become the hero. Seeing how Jinchuriki was treated as the ultimate weapon of war, his dream for becoming Hokage evolved once more to be the one to hold the key to her cage. He did it to give Kushina a chance to become just another person. He did it to make her smile and be free, just like everyone else. Even though that dream, so simple and pure, was destroyed at the hand of the masked Uchiha. People thought that becoming Hokage was about the village. That was just one side to it. Every Hokage were known as greatest protector of the village, that their only reason for wearing the hat was to make every Konoha citizen happy and safe. But humans were selfish creatures. The other side was much more personal and much more simple. Perhaps the Shodaime did indeed create Konoha with an impersonal dream. Perhaps the Nidaime did wear the hat to further his late brother's vision. Perhaps the Sandaime did wear the hat out of necessity and care for the children of Konoha. But for Minato, nothing can keep Kushina safer than to be the one in charge of her directly. Sure, he loved the village, but he loved her too, perhaps more than the village. However, he was a man of honor, something rare that forced him to make the cruelest decision he could. Had he another choice, there will not be another Jinchuriki after Kushina. Minato said, Naruto, be clear with yourself so that you will not have regret. Can you see a world in which you are just a friend to Hinata? To attend her wedding as her guest? To buy gifts for her children that wasn't yours? To be standing on the outside of her private life? To watch as another man comfort her when she cries? As a man that wasn't you make her smile and laugh? Can you bear such a pain? And if she ended up with an abusive lover, can you bear watching her cry over another man's action? Can you imagine a world in which she will drift away with her own life separate from yours until she draw her last breath? Naruto screamed. Enough, he gasped, realizing that he had just shouted outside just as much as he had shouted in his mind. He whimpered, curling up on himself. Those scenes Minato described, it was unbearable. It was torture. He won't survive it. It felt like his heart was being torn apart in his chest. It felt like all his strength fled from his limbs. It felt like he was being strangled. It felt like death. Minato called, Naruto, I'm sorry for telling you all that, but those are the very same thought in my mind. Had I been able to let Kushina go without that pain in my heart, then it wasn't love that I felt for her. Just a friendly affection, a platonic care that can't go beyond friendship. But it wasn't. The fact that it's painful so much so that it felt like I'm suffering a heart attack at the very idea of her being separated from me, to live our separate lives. I think you understand. Naruto trembled. He closed his eyes and opened them within to see Minato watching the quietly sleeping chakra of his mother. Even now, separated by life and death, he missed her. Naruto sighed and opened his eyes to the world outside. He stood up, still trembling from the pain of being separated from Hinata, even if it was just his imagination. Naruto looked at the hospital and thought of Hinata. He recalled Karin telling him, even though she was trying to be sly, that Hinata carried a torch for him. He knew she didn't stutter around her friends or the others. She only ever stuttered with him. Her cheeks always turned red around him. He had heard her friends teasing her, and he had brushed it off as them messing around. But he was in denial. After all, who could possibly love a monster? Minato sighed. You're not. And if you give her a chance, Naruto, a chance. That was all that was needed. a chance to see where this will take them. He was aware of her family. How could he not? They were his biggest hurdle, especially her grandfather. He was somehow anxious and excited. But what about Hinata? Will she chance this with him, or will she fold before her family's expectation? Minato snorted. Are we thinking of the same girl? Naruto, you know her, don't you? Hinata might soft and sweet, but she's a fighter and rebel. I have met many proud Hyuga, men and women, but that girl's pride manifests in a different manner. If she love you, she will love you with pride. Naruto blushed at hearing his father's encouraging words. He sniffed the air, seeking for that one particular scent that tickled his heart despite his wishes. He caught a trail of it and started to chase. She had left the hospital and was making her way through Konoha. He also smelled Ko, always guarding her. He clenched his teeth, the bestial part of him that claimed her as his to protect, protesting at the fact that it wasn't him protecting her. Naruto ignored that primal and feral side of him. He will never force himself on Hinata. It didn't take him long to see Hinata walking before Ino's family's florist. She looked at the flowers and poked at the dwarf sunflowers in cute little pots. Naruto stopped and watched her for a moment. She smiled, his fox ear catching her mumble. Just like Naruto-kun, he blushed. His heart raced in his chest. He felt his anxiety climbing and pounding against himself. But he drew in a deep breath and called out, "Hinata!" She gasped and looked at him with wide eyes. The slight tinge of lilac in her otherwise white eyes made it look like those fancy light purple diamonds under the sun. Her cheeks blossomed red like tsubaki flowers as she shyly smiled at him. The way her whole expression lit up at the sight of him, as if he brought an early Rinne festival's present for her, made him feel warm inside. She shyly greeted him. Hello, Naruto-kun. The way she said his name, he had always wondered what it was about the way she said it that made him so flustered and happy all the time. Now that his mind was unclouded by denials, he realized that she spoke of his name like a secret and intimate prayer, almost purring whenever she looked at him. He gulped and said, "You are out. I'm glad. You must be so done with sleeping all the time, eh?" She blushed a deeper red and ducked her head down, but her eyes peeked at him through the curtain of her night-colored bangs. She answered, maybe. But I have good dreams. Was she implying that she was dreaming of him? How adorable. He greeted Ko with a nod before looking at her. Have you eaten? Seeing her reluctant to answer, he said, "Bet they didn't fill you up as they should, didn't they?" Honestly, the process of eating starts from scent, the taste, followed by visual. At least that's what the gourmet I met on my journey said, Databeo. He stepped closer, leaning close to her blushing face. Want to accompany me? I'm hungry too. His stomach took that chance to agree with him. Ko answered, Hinata-sama, your father told me to take you directly home upon release. Hinata bit her lip, eyes on Naruto. Naruto pulled away, giving her some space. He smiled at her, a hint of a challenge in the way his lips curled at the corner. She drew in some breath and answered Ko. I am sure that Otis-sama won't mind me catching up with a friend. She didn't stutter at all, as she let her will be known. Ko looked at Naruto before bowing. I will continue with my duty. Hinata opened her mouth, thought of something, and said, Please give us privacy, Ko-san. Thank you. Naruto's heart fluttered. She never showed this stubborn side to him. With him, she was always submissive and spoiled, always wanting him to look at her, but not willing to get in his way. But on her own, she was dignified and stubborn, proud and graceful, every image of an heiress. It was like a gap-mo. Minato said, No, it is a gap-mo. Ko sighed but bowed, stepping back away from her. Once that was done, Hinata looked at Naruto, her pointers tapping in a nervous tick. Where would you like to go, Naruto-kun? Naruto thought about it before saying, Want to eat some grilled meat? I feel like grilled meat. Also, you need more meat. I think you lose some weight while at the hospital, Databeo. He reached over and cupped her cheek, feeling the heat raised. His invisible ear twitched at the fluttering noise. This always happened around Hinata, that fluttering noise. It sounded a bit like a bird flapping around. Hinata answered with a slight whimper. Oh, okay. He grinned and watched as her face turned a deeper red. Also, that bird was really panicking now. He wondered what was going on with the bird. As they walked, they talked about a lot of things. Naruto talked about his training, and Hinata talked about Neji. Naruto understood that Neji had gone through some tough stuff. However, still didn't give him the right to do the shits he did to you. Hinata blushed as his crass language. It happened whenever he felt something strongly. For Hinata, Naruto have two sides. The sides he always showed was this polite and mild-mannered boy that was wary of insulting anyone, always with an almost political smile on his lips. But the other side made her feel a strange thrill. He would curse and speak bluntly. Whenever he was like that, he felt more sincere. Or maybe that was just her. Her whole family was about noble etiquette and manners. No one speak their mind in the Hyuga household. So whenever this more feral side of Naruto showed itself, it was like a breath of fresh air. Either way, she liked it. Or maybe it was like those movies about good girl meeting bad boy. In this case, her being the textbook good girl and Naruto being the wild bad boy. As they entered Yakiniku-Q, Naruto chose a private space so that they won't be noticed by any of the others that might pass by. The waitress gave him a weird look, but with Hinata there, being the Hyuga heiress, she dare not give him lip. So he ordered a simple combo for two, telling Hinata that the meal was on him, since he was the one to invite her. They placed two tall glasses chilled peach drinks on the table before turning away to prepare the meat. Naruto asked Hinata, "Are you ready for tomorrow?" Hinata tapped her drink with a nail that was due for trimming before answering. "A bit, I don't know how to say this. Neji is my cousin, but why you are important," she didn't say. Naruto understood. "I get it. You will be watching your best friend and the boy you called brother kicking each other's asses tomorrow. I understand that it must be difficult for you to cheer for either of us, so dash." And no, he looked at her. Hinata's cheeks were red, and he can see her trembling. The fluttering wings of that bird was persistent in his ears. She caught his eyes, and his breath hitched in his throat as she said, I'm cheering for you." Naruto blushed and shied away from her gaze. "Why, you don't have to force yourself." Hinata dash. "I want to cheer for you." He looked at her and saw the steely determination that he always saw a hint of in her moonlight gaze. "He is my family, but he needs to wake up. I can't reach him. I'm not strong enough. As Shino told me about your blood oath. I won't Dida-san or you by cheering for Neji, even if he is family." Minato gulped. "Naruto, this girl is thinking like your wife." Naruto shifted in his seat, his invisible tails fluffing up behind him. He gulped. He opened his mouth to answer her, but the waiter returned with their food. Naruto's face darkened. Before they could place the meat, Hinata stopped the waiter. She looked at the heiress in shock and paled at Hinata's glaring Byakugan. Hinata coldly ordered her, "Change what you have spoiled." The waitress opened her mouth to defend herself, but Hinata's hold on her wrist tightened hard enough that the bone creaked. Her face paled in pain as she realized that Hinata wasn't playing around. She quickly nodded and pulled away with the plates of meat. Naruto frowned, the scent of saliva on clean meat drifting away from their table. He looked at Hinata. "Sorry about that." Hinata shook her head, her brows furrowed. "They shouldn't have done that." Naruto stared at her before saying, "Hinata." She looked at him. "How much do you like me?" Her face turned red and her eyes widened. The fluttering sound grew louder, and it was only when she was pressing her hands against her chest did Naruto realize what the fluttering noise that he kept hearing around Hinata was about. It was her heart. Her heart always raced in his presence, even as a child. She bit her lips before answering. Too much." She trembled from the strength of her own feelings. I like you too much." He knew then that she wasn't sure about romantic love, just like him. But she wasn't shy at admitting that she liked him as more than a friend. He recalled Minato's words, "If she love you, she will love you with pride." Naruto studied her expression, watching her panicking from his silence, before answering. "Me too." Her eyes widened and her heart skipped a few beats. He smiled. "I like you too much too." It felt like something just shifted between them. They weren't exactly lovers or dating each other. Neither of them were ready for such a big step. They were both too aware just how young they were for something like that. So, confessing like this should be enough for now. A different waiter appeared, and Naruto smiled. Hinata relaxed at the sight, knowing that this time, their food wasn't tampered with. She looked to see Ko nodding at her. She signaled her thanks to the man for covering her back. She should treat him to something someday. Naruto grinned as he started cooking. "Let's eat, because you're her brother." Naruto breathed in deep and let out slowly. Chunin final have arrived, and there was this tension under his skin that felt worryingly familiar. Naruto didn't like it, but if there was one thing his Bijuu side was good at, it was sensing problems. So he wore his improved kimono and hakama, the seals sewn in between the linings, making the clothing more reliable than any samurai armor or shinobi gear. He made sure every kunai and shuriken sharp with a thin coat of sedative, just to be safe. Then, using the seal in his arm braces to seal away the special scroll that he had Minato help him create. Naruto then put on his mask. He fixed his shoes and opened the door. He paused, hearing the distant cheering of crowds. There was some colored smokes being shot to the sky, adding onto the festive mood. But all he can think about was the blood he promised with. Minato said, "You can do this." Naruto smiled, "Thanks." He closed his door and locked it behind. Naruto leaped all the way to the stadium, taking note of the increased foot traffic below. He kept jumping, other shinobi using the highway to avoid the crowd alongside him, leaping over rooftops like jumping spiders. When he reached the area around the stadium, he landed. He sighed, his body warmed up from the jumping. He looked around, taking note of the food stalls lining the streets leading to the stadium and the area around it. Fortunately, he had his meal early that day after warming up, so he wasn't tempted by the scents. He entered the stadium and was guided toward the arena. There was an open space and a cluster of trees that were somehow grown there. It mimics the map of Hai with its rolling hills and abundance of trees. Naruto joined the other, catching sight of Hinata separating from her clan to seat with Kiba and the others. She saw him looking and smiled, making a cute gesture of fight towards him with a blush. Naruto grinned at that. There was an opening speech and that rules of the exam being laid out. Naruto then followed the rest as Shikamaru was made to open the fight with his match against Temari from Suna. He overheard the boys said something about extra napping time after. He climbed up the stairs and into the box where the rest were sitting. Somehow, Sakura and Ino had managed to smuggle Karin to sit with them. The red-haired girl happily chewed on her box of okonomiyaki. Naruto nodded at Hinata as he joined her. "Morning," Hinata smiled. "Morning, Naruto-kun." He can still hear her heart race, but she was calmer, somehow. He grinned. "Have you had breakfast?" She nodded before asking. "Why you?" He hummed. "I had it." They fell silent. But as Naruto's hand fell on the bench, his pinky bumped with hers. She twitched at the contact and hooked her pinky around his. The two then blushed, but said nothing. Instead, they watched as Shikamaru did his best to survive the angry foreign kunoichi below. However, their interaction wasn't unnoticed by those looking at them. Hyuga Hayashi frowned as he saw his eldest daughter interact with the strange boy with the mask. He wasn't sure about Hinata. She had shown to have the strength and the steel required to be an heiress, yet at the same time she was soft. She had purposefully made it so that the heiress selection did not have a clear winner, so that Hanabi won't be sealed. She had managed to call a draw to save Hanabi from the cage bird seal. Hayashi didn't know from where she gained this strange mix of strength and softness. But lately he heard something about someone named Naruto that Hinata respected. She had been reported to behave strangely around him. As if the cold but benevolent heiress was nothing but a lie, the girl returned to her original timid nature around him, a masked blonde shinobi. Ko had also reported that apparently Hinata's strength was derived from her desire to be known to this Naruto while he trained under Jiraiya. It was an odd way to keep a connection with the mysterious boy after he left Konoha with no way to contact him. Hayashi did not have problem with Hinata's motivation to grow stronger, only that she was motivated by the desire to chase a boy. A Hyuga heiress should be better than the likes of the Yamanaka's heiress. Also, after he sent someone to investigate about this Naruto, the boy turned out to be the clan head to the defunct Uzumaki clan. Another conundrum. An heiress of a prestigious clan and the head of an all but dead clan. How can Hayashi stand it? Hyuga Hanabi stared at her sister. She respected Hinata, especially after she forced Hanabi to a draw despite it being clear that Hinata was far stronger. Because of Hinata's action, Hanabi wasn't sealed to servitude, though her position in the clan floated uneasily as no one was sure what to do with her. They weren't outright mean, but they certainly wasn't sure on how to treat her, the clan heiress or one of them. But Hinata continued to treat her as sister, so there was that. Still, was the masked blonde boy that she sometimes saw around Konoha, the Naruto that Hinata sometimes talk about. Hinata said that he was very handsome under his mask, but Hanabi can't see it. She heard someone behind her said something about a seal preventing their Byakugan from seeing past the mask. This intrigued Hanabi, because she heard even for the old crone that was in charge of the cage bird seal that Fuinjutsu was a hard study to master. It didn't take long before Shikamaru called, "I forfeit." Ino shouted, "What?" The Nara heir lazily made his way up, yawning, before the proctor could even name Temari as winner of that round. He looked up to see Naruto whispering to a giggling Hinata. He recalled the night he learned about jinchuriki. Since then, he secretly dug out all that he can learn about jinchuriki. It was sickening. No one honored the Shodame's wish to end war by handing out the Bijuu. If anything, it only emboldened the people to use the jinchuriki as their ultimate weapon. It certainly explained why Naruto was overly polite whenever people talk about Konoha. He was trying to stay civil towards a government that dehumanized him, but that certainly explained why Naruto lacked fear towards Gaara. He held the Kyuubi within him, the same beast that struck terror into the heart of Konoha. The reason why foxes were all but extinct in Konoha. But Shikamaru wondered why Naruto would wear the reason for his situation proudly. Everything he owned, there was a hint of autumn and foxes. Shikamaru had seen the dirty look sent to Naruto by the locals. People from the older generation, the generation that suffered the worst of the Kyuubi's attack's aftermath, despised Naruto. Shikamaru had seen an old woman spat at Naruto's feet, though he avoided it like it was natural. Shikamaru had wondered why he won't change his choice of patterns and his mask. He thought that it was stupid, but perhaps it was a matter of pride. All this flitted through Shikamaru's mind in a matter of seconds as he joined the group. He nodded at his teammates and endured Ino's scolding as the next contestants were called. Uzumaki Naruto versus Hyuga Neji. Will the two contestants step in the arena, please? Naruto stood up and heard Hinata said, clearly instead of a whisper, "Win, Naruto-kun." It was a clear wish from her, and not an ambiguous one either. She was making it clear that she stood by him instead of her clan. It was also a vocal declaration of her faith in him. Naruto turned to her and smiled. "I promise for you, after all. Of course I'll win, Dadabayo." As he stepped towards the stairwell, Sasuke arrived with a grumble and a lei Kakashi. "Made it. Wait, where's Naruto?" He looked around for the uniquely masked boy. Sakura pointed. "He just stepped into the arena." Sasuke sat down in Naruto's forsaken seat and looked to see Naruto taking his spot across from a fuming Neji. He thought that he had missed Naruto's fight. Fortunately, he didn't. He hoped to see more of Naruto's abilities. He wanted to know just how far ahead was Naruto. Kiba, who was sitting behind Hinata, whispered, "So, are you dating Naruto now?" Sasuke glanced at them, surprised to hear such a thing. "Hinata blast." No, Kiba frowned. "But you were sweet with him? What was the hook pinkies for then?" Hinata huffed. "Leave it, Kiba." Kiba pulled away with a pout. "Fine. Keep it secret then." Below, Neji glared at Naruto. He had seen the closeness between the blonde and Hinata. He couldn't understand what Naruto saw in her. It also irate him to learn that the sudden positive change that happened with her was due to his influence. It felt wrong, and he didn't like it. Hinata was supposed to be timid and useless, spineless and weak, dumb and bland. That was the girl he knew, the one that had been breaking out of her shell, that charmed the Hyuga of both main and branch sides. It can't possibly be her. It can't possibly be Hinata. Naruto then stood like an idiot across from him. Neji sneered. "You can't change anything. In fact, nothing changed. That is fate. She was born weak, and she will remain weak." Naruto twitched, cracking his neck and rolled his shoulders but didn't say anything. The proctor eyed the two. "Ready? Start." They stood there, unmoving, watching, waiting. Neji scowled. Realizing that Naruto wasn't going to move, he decided to end this farce before him with a few juken taps. But the moment he drew closer, Naruto's stance changed. Before long, two different taijutsu schools clashed. While Neji moved like a mountain, stance firm, and strikes like meteors, Naruto was agile, and each strike was like a storm of blades made of limbs. It was soon clear that Naruto's technique was pure offense, while Neji's juken balanced out on both offense and defense. But the most obvious was that Naruto didn't just use his blade-like hands. He also used his legs, knees, and elbows to strike Neji's Juken blow by blow. Neji glared. It was slowly becoming more and more obvious that that was a battle of attrition. Juken was mostly known at staying firmly grounded and seldom chased. Proud as the mountain, that was the Hyuga's creed. But Naruto's Kyoturyu wasn't firm like the mountain. He was a storm, a typhoon of blades. Neji had tried to learn about Naruto's taijutsu school, but there was little knowledge other than it was made to counter blades. Even more, it wasn't a taijutsu school, but rather a samurai school. A samurai school that used no katana or any weapon. Rather, the body became the weapon. A kenjutsu without the ken. As Naruto barraged Neji with his attacks, Neji decided to use his ace. He waited as Naruto drew near. Once the boy's momentum threw him forward, Neji spun, Kaden, their attacks collided, and the momentum of his circular motion threw off Naruto's direct attack. He stopped, smug upon hearing the Hyuga clan's restless buzzing in the seat. But when he returned his focus on Naruto, the boy was back up. How irksome, Neji glowered. Give up. Naruto spat out a glob of blood and used his tongue to check his teeth. He looked at Neji. No. If this was just an ordinary Chunin final for me, maybe I would. But it isn't. I promised on Hinata's blood to beat you up. Besides, my nindo is that I don't go back on my words. He then took a stance. This one different from before. This was the 7th stance of the Kyoturyu. He glared at Neji through his masked eye holes. Neji took a defensive stance just as Naruto exploded forward. He knew that Kaden had taken a lot out of Neji, but the Hyuga was arrogant and believed that this time, he will be able to settle the match with his win if he just used his ace once more. As he moved, Naruto disappeared from sight. Just as he tried to locate Naruto, the ground under him burst open. Neji braced just as Naruto appeared and struck him. His strikes were too fast for Neji to react to. His body was flung upward by the momentum with Naruto chasing after. He tried to curl his body to defend his vulnerable parts, but Naruto didn't even give him a chance. In fact, he grabbed Neji's defending wrist and pulled, using the yet-to-end momentum to twist and throw Neji hard to the ground of the arena. Earth cracked and almost folded from the impact alone. Neji coughed out blood. He thought, why? Naruto landed beside him. Because Hinata, she believed that you are more than just a branch Hyuga meant to serve her. In her heart, you are her brother. Besides, you're scared of false hope, didn't you? Neji froze, staring at Naruto. Naruto smiled. You're scared that you cannot meet her expectation. Because the Hyuga clan's tradition had failed its most sacred value. Family, he added. You are actually anxious about this path of change that she is taking. You are scared that she will be broken by reality just like it broke you, and that things will only get worse from there. So you thought, won't it be better that she stopped now before she ruined herself? But Hinata is strong. Naruto looked at Neji. You just turned a blind eye to that because your heart is weak. You couldn't fathom where her true strength lie, just like the rest of your clan. Which is ironic, considering what the Will of Fire is all about. Uzumaki Naruto win. Naruto watched as medics took Naruto away from the arena before moving back to his seat himself. His heart felt lighter now that he kept his promise to Hinata. Above in the seats, Hayashi was frowning. It seemed that Hinata have eyes for gems. The boy's movement was a little rough around the edges, but he had heard that taijutsu wasn't his expertise. Rather, fuinjutsu and kenjutsu were. The fact that he stepped into a fight with the most talented Hyuga of their generation with a barely mastered technique spoke much of his true capabilities. Even more when he won. But that aside, it seemed that it was time to speak to Neji. He had noticed the festering hate in his nephew, but had thought to wait for further maturity. Yet it seemed that delaying the talk any further could be detrimental for the clan. Neji was as talented as Uchiha Itachi after all. Still, the fact remained that he cannot agree with whatever was going on between the two. Unless Hinata gave up her seat as heiress, relationship with the head of the Uzumaki clan cannot be accepted. Not to mention, no Hyuga marry out. That one Hyuga that married out ended up with a descendant that turned into a traitor to Konoha, so the elders refused to make the same mistake ever again. Also, there was the matter of the seal. Being an Uzumaki, if the clan sealed Hinata, Naruto can easily find a way to unseal her, and that could open a whole other can of worms that 𝐤𝐲𝐻𝐻 couldn't be bothered to deal with. That, and the fact that sealing the wife of another clan head will make their clan look bad and will fester suspicion and paranoia. He hummed and stood up to deal with Neji, ordering Hanabi to stay put with their clan. With so many outsiders, he cannot leave his children without additional protection. Naruto joined Hinata after Sasuke scooted out of the seat he was occupying. Thanking the Uchiha, he took his seat and smiled at Hinata, making the peace symbol with his hand. "I win." Hinata giggled, "Yes." She sniffled a little. "Thank you, Naruto-kun." Naruto grinned. "No problem, Hinata-chan," Karin called out. "Good luck, Shino." "I forfeit." Shino didn't even have time to leave his seat. Karin grimaced as his beetles buzzed under his skin in annoyance. The other genin wondered why Kankuro gave up so easily. Naruto hummed, feeling that itch under his skin once more. He pursed his lips as the proctor called out for the next contestants. Uchiha Sasuke versus Sabaka no Gaara. Sakura cheered. "Good luck, Sasuke-kun." Sasuke thought about just ignoring her. Then he remembered Naruto teasing him on how he will go about the latter part of his ambition if he ignored all female attention. People might even mistake him for being gay since he kept looking for Naruto. He didn't really see Sakura in that light, but she was annoying enough for him to notice. So he nodded at her. Chin. As he left, Ino squealed at Sakura, gawking, "Forehead, what was that? Did he just dash? Did he just acknowledge you?" Sakura's face was red. It was something so minuscule, so stupidly minuscule, and yet it felt like Sasuke just smiled at her. Did he really finally notice her? Will he reciprocate her feelings for him? Will all her dreams of him and her come true? All these ran through her head, and her heart forgot to function for a few beats. She ended up giggling from the fleeting attention. She sighed, green eyes sparkling. This is the power of true love. Ino clicked her tongue. "TSK, you win this time, forehead, but it isn't the end game yet." Karin stared at the duo. They were her constant companion ever since Naruto introduced Sakura to her. She admitted that the Uchiha was handsome and his chakra was pretty, but he didn't make her laugh, and Karin found that she liked laughing. She turned to watch Shino whispering curses at an oblivious Kankuro. "This isn't over, cat boy." She hid a smile. The boy from Suna did wear what looked like a cat onesie after all. She reached out and bravely patted his shoulder. Shino turned her and Karin kept on smiling. "You'll get him one day, Shino." As this and that happened in their box, Sasuke was battling Gaara in the arena. He blitzed around and landed a hit. But just as things grew interesting, feathers fell from the sky. "Nephew?" Minato cursed as he disrupted Naruto's chakra the moment the foreign chakra invaded his system. Naruto shared his senses with Minato and grimaced at the sight of shinobi fighting among sleeping civilian and children. He looked to see Hinata blitzing towards her sister and defending her as the Hyuga clan corralled their own to a bunker. He looked around and pulled out a kopis to defend himself. He knew this, and he recalled that familiar itch that had been building for the last 3 days. Minato voiced his thought, an invasion. Naruto clicked his tongue as he looked around. Gaara had escaped, and Sasuke had given chase. Naruto cursed, "That idiot!" He looked around and moved to intercept more Odo shinobi from attacking the other genin. He then growled and kicked Shikamaru. If you think staying asleep during war is a good idea, then you might just find yourself crushed under a fallen debris or victim of a stray attack, Databayo. Shikamaru sat up. Damn that logic. So troublesome. Naruto turned to Kakashi. "Sensei, I'm chasing after Sasuke." Kakashi looked at him. "Need help?" Naruto shook his head. "My nose is just fine." Karin called, "Naruto, do you need help?" "No, wait, never mind. I'm coming with." Sakura joined him. "Me too." Naruto looked at Karin. "No. You go with Hinata." He raised a hand. "I'm grateful that you want to help, but Hinata could use some help from you. Besides, you're an Uzumaki and red-haired one at that. There might be people who will kidnap you. Best you stay with Hinata. She should be guiding the children of her clan to the bunker at the moment. Also," he smiled, "I could use your help at gaining some brownie points with the Hyuga." Realizing that Naruto wanted her to make the Hyuga shut up about him being close with Hinata using Blood Debt, Karin ended up agreeing. She nodded. "Okay, I'll keep them safe." After that, she turned to see Shikamaru and Shino joining him. Karin called out with a smile. Stay safe, Shino. Shikamaru blinked, almost jumping when he finally noticed Shino standing nearby. Shino's Kakacha buzzed, and a two landed on her. One for her, and the other for Hinata. He then looked at Naruto. Lead the way. Naruto nodded and started running. The trio followed behind him. He can sense the sands in the air, and the scent of blood was so thick he could choke on it. Before long, he sensed something else. We are being followed, Shikamaru said. How about I deal with them? You go ahead, Sakura glowered. You just want to laze around, he smirked. Yeah. Sakura was surprised that Naruto didn't argue with Shikamaru. If anything, all he said was, don't die. Shikamaru's eyes widened before grinning, sure. After that, they continued on their way. They leaped through trees and chased after the sound of battle. Just as they drew close, a familiar puppet appeared, almost beheading them. Shino leaped ahead and nodded. Go. Naruto repeated, survive. Shino nodded before facing the puppeteer. Our match isn't over. Kankuro grimaced. Seriously? We are at war. Sakura gulped. Now it was just her and Naruto. Her hands grew clammy. What can they do? She had seen what Gaara had done to Lee. He was a force of nature, just like Naruto had warned them before entering the forest of death. Sakura looked at Naruto, and he continued without looking at her. I want you to grab Sasuke and flee from us as far as you can. Sakura frowned. We can help. Naruto sighed. If this battle is going down the way I think it will, then you will only be collateral damage. The moment I say that I'm taking my mask, you find cover. Got it? Sakura didn't want to get it. They were supposed to be a team, and even though Naruto was new with them, she had grown fond of his presence in the team. She didn't exaggerate when she told Sasuke that Naruto had been carrying them through the exam. Besides, Team 7 do not abandon comrades. Naruto smiled. Good to know. He then sternly said, but please, this is for your and Sasuke's safety. There is a reason I wear my mask, and it wasn't just because I'm shy. They arrived before she could deny his wish once more, just in time to see Sasuke avoid another slam from a sandy hand. Gaara was almost completely covered in sand, a single tail forming behind him. He wasn't morphing into a full Bijuu shroud. It was a mixture of elemental manipulation and Bijuu shroud. Sakura shouted and grabbed Sasuke before most sand can flatten him. Just as she thought she won't make it, a shield made out of paper people appeared and stopped the attack. Gaara turned his attention to Naruto. You freak, stop hiding yourself. Naruto tilted his head to Sakura. Sakura, please. Sasuke groaned as he tried to stand up. And no, I can still dash. Baka. Naruto shouted. Look at you. Didn't I tell you that in a battle of chakra, you will lose to him? Stop just acting, Sasuke, and start thinking. Understanding your enemy is the first step to win against them. But right now, your head is so far up your ass you can't even see the shit you are in. So listen to Sakura and leave. Another shield made of papers with seals that negated chakra formed before him, weakening Gaara's attack. Gaara growled and tried again and again, but each time Naruto's simple seals negated his attacks, weakening them. A strong gust of wind blew, forming a blade. Naruto leaped away as the wind shredded his papers. No matter how versatile his creation was, they were still just papers. Temari shouted, Gaara, the plan. Gaara ignored her, glaring at Naruto. Why? Why? You are just like me. Why are you protecting these flesh bags? You are stronger than them, more powerful than them, so why are you wasting your time protecting them? They are only weakening you. He then cackled. Look at me. I am strong. I love no one but myself, and thus, nothing can stop me from doing what I want. Not even my so-called siblings. He sneered. There are nothing but annoying pieces of meat that I can't get rid of. He ignored the way Temari flinched. Sakura gathered Sasuke, but even with all her training, he had grown heavier with muscles. Not for the first time, she cursed her weak body. She looked at Naruto. Naruto, we can leave together, please. Suddenly, a wall of sand appeared around them, caging them. Sakura paled and stumbled from Sasuke's weight. Gaara grinned, his expression manic. No one is going anywhere. Naruto stood before his teammates. You will not use their lives against me. Gaara jeered. Then you will die, freak. All you need to do to win is to leave them for death and fight me. That is all." Naruto pursed his lips. He then sighed before lifting his hand to his mask. Kai. There was a pulse of chakra, and all the seals on the mask that covered his form withdrew. Then, his form shimmered as he fully took off his mask from his face. Fox ears, towering over his head, came to view. 9 tails, golden and elegant, healthy and fluffy, appeared behind him. Sakura and Sasuke's eyes widened at the sight. Not only that, there was a weight to his presence. It took them a moment to realize that it was his chakra. Gaara paused, his eyes confused at the sight before him. "You? What are you?" Naruto smiled. "I am the jinchuriki of the 𝐸, cursed by the Shinigami. You could say that I become the 𝐸." He looked at Sakura and handed the mask. "Here, hold on to this, and no matter what happened, don't let go. Just think of it as an Omamori talisman." They blinked at the first sight of Naruto's full face. With the way his hair framed it, it somehow reminded them of another face, one that was carved for all of Konoha to see. But Naruto turned away and faced Gaara. "I am not hiding anymore." Gaara glared at Naruto, but somehow no one was moving. He then frowned. "Mother refused to fight you." Naruto blinked. "And why would Shikaku refuse to fight me?" Gaara looked confused. "Mother dash." Before anything more can be said, Naruto felt his whole body pulsed with pain. He ended up groaning and holding onto his stomach. It wasn't a stomach pain. He was in so much pain that his ears rang. He quickly went inside to see Minato growling and fighting as the gates rattled. The seal on the gates flashed ominously. Naruto called, "What is going? What is happening?" Minato growled, Someone is summoning me." He looked at Naruto. Use that seal? Hurry." Naruto bit his lips and opened his eyes. Sasuke and Sakura was looking at him, and Gaara actually looked concerned. Naruto unsealed an ofuda that he and Minato wrote up in case of such a situation, and opened his clothes. The seal on his around his navel looked red and angry as it flashed with warning. Naruto shouted as he slapped the seal on the existing seal. Almost at once, he could feel the seal around Minato tighten further until he could no longer feel the threat of seal breaking. Naruto gulped in relief as he frowned. "That is not good." Sasuke scowled. "You think you were flickering with chakra, and your face is clean of blood. I thought you were going to die." Naruto chuckled weakly. "If the seal fail or break, I will, maybe." Neither he nor Minato really know what will really happen should the seal fail. Gaara suddenly asked, "Are you well now, Uncle?" Naruto blinked at the weird question. "What?" His team gathered around him, almost shielding him. But Gaara said, "Mother called you her sibling. You are not like me. You are like Mother. That makes you my uncle." For a moment, Naruto waited for Gaara to explode into violent sand tsunami. But rather than more violence, he looked sheepish. Also, a little afraid, Naruto groaned as he climbed up to his feet. With his Bijuu chakra out of his reach, he felt a little imbalanced. Hopefully he can take off the seal before the day was over. He wasn't sure what will really happen if he only have young Bijuu chakra without Minato's to balance it out. He could end up a fool for all he know. The represent the mind after all. Naruto straightened his clothes and looked at Gaara. Why? Why did Suna attack Konoha? If I'm not wrong, we are allies, Temari answered. Because Konoha have been stealing our missions. Naruto blinked. Don't know how that could happen. I mean, missions are given by the people. We can't control where or who they choose to hire. So your accusation makes no sense, he frowned. Also, why are you working with Orochimaru? I thought I saw a lot of Odo shinobi when on the way here. Temari blinked. Orochimaru? We work with Odo, not Orochimaru. What are you talking about? Naruto gulped, his head spinning from chakra imbalance. Orochimaru, is the man that attended as Kazekage really the Kazekage? He groaned and swayed. Sasuke and Sakura grabbed him as he felt faint. Shit. Sakura frowned. What's wrong? I thought that seal was supposed to make you feel better. Naruto shook his head. Too much yang. Not enough Gaara lowered the wall of sands. We will help. Temari looked at him. Gaara insisted. I trust you. You are my uncle. Mother tell me to help you. Mother couldn't care less about the humans, but you, Mother, care about you. You are family, the youngest Bijuu. Mother said that a good sibling takes care of their own. I will help you. Naruto didn't know what to say or think about the way the Ichibi viewed him. He chuckled. I don't even know if I'm Bijuu or human. He gulped. But if seeing me as a Bijuu means you will help end this stupid war, then please. I will be a Bijuu. Gaara stared at him and asked, why? Are you doing this? Why do you hurt yourself for them? Why defend them? Why protect them? What care for them? Naruto blinked and stared into Gaara's eyes. He smiled. People would rather forget what they fear. So your way to have them acknowledge you won't last. But if you create bonds, be someone important and special, even if it was just one person, then that is all the acknowledgement you need. And for me, Konoha is my cage, but somewhere inside that cage is someone that make it feel as if I'm not chained to serve the village. Even if it is just them, I need to keep the village safe. He swayed and looked at Sakura. Mask. Please. As Sakura helped place the mask on his face, Gaara asked, why do you hide? Naruto smiled. Is wearing the mask of a kitsune really hiding? I just don't want people to gawk too much at my magnificent tails. Databeo. Gaara blinked before saying, Mother said you are really like the other Kyuubi. So proud of your number of tails. Naruto shook his head, feeling dizzy now that the mask sealed most of his Bijuu chakra away. No, not numbers. My tails are so fluffy. I like my tails, fluffy and soft. Pretty tails. Sasuke frowned. You should rest. You're talking stupid right now. He gathered Naruto on his shoulders. I'll carry you. After that, Naruto knew now more. Sasuke winced as he climbed up the steps to Naruto's small home. The invasion of Oto and Suna had ended around 2 days ago. People were still rebuilding, and everyone was still confused by the sudden change of heart in Gaara's action. Even the Suna shinobi who were fighting Konoha shinobi backtracked as Gaara started plucking Oto's shinobi and crushing them with his sand. Temari had to find their accompanying Jounin instructor and explain her suspicion about the 𝐫𝐞𝐽𝐻. Once it was confirmed that the 𝐫𝐞𝐽𝐻 was really Orochimaru in disguise, Konoha's former ally suddenly turned on their new ally. But things of more complicated nature was of little importance to Sasuke. He was still sore from almost dying at Gaara's hand. And then he and Sakura was busy smuggling Naruto back to his home. They came across Hinata and Karin, who were both fighting to keep the invasion away from the academy with Iruka. Iruka saw Naruto and immediately revealed that he was in charge of Naruto's home when the boy was away. He was the only one that Naruto entrusted a spare key with. It was how they managed to sneak Naruto into his own home. He looked up to see Hinata weeding the plants. She heard him and turned to him, saying, he's still unconscious. In fear of the uncertainty on peeling off the seal on Naruto, they decided to wait for Jiraiya as the man was the expert. However, Jiraiya was caught up with the funerals, especially of the late Sandaime Hokage. They had hoped that Naruto will wake up on his own, but he failed at doing so. And no matter what they did, they couldn't take off his mask. Karin said something along the line that it can only be deactivated by Naruto. Sasuke nodded and entered Naruto's home. He noticed the rolled-up bedroll in the study area. He suspected that Iruka must have taken to guarding Naruto. He then looked at Naruto. He had been changed out and wiped clean. Gaara had visited before having to leave for Suna. He left with a dangerous warning. Do not betray or hurt him. Do so and your life is mine. He sat down and thought about the fight and the way Naruto scolded him for forgetting to think. It was strange to be scolded after so long without. Kakashi will just call him stupid or cute, completely demeaning him. It wasn't really scolding, but rather emotional blackmail. Sasuke hated the manipulation. He preferred it when someone was direct with him. Hinata entered the small home and sat closer to Naruto. It was only as she passed him by that he recalled the scented oil that Naruto liked burning. It smelled just like her. He wondered if she knew, but he didn't dare ask in case she didn't. So he ended up saying nothing. Hinata asked, "Did you escape from the hospital?" Sasuke flushed so. She smiled. "He'll scold you, you know." Sasuke did not, pouted. "He's not my keeper." Hinata said nothing more. Instead, she undid the braids she made of Naruto's long hair and started combing them. He didn't know how long it was when a large man appeared with Karin. "Yo!" Unmasked, Jiraiya looked at Karin, who was looking at Sasuke, who was looking at a smiling Hinata. He shifted. Shouldn't you leave? Karin's stubborn stayed. I'm his cousin. I have a right to stay. Sasuke frowned. I'm his teammate. I have a right to stay. Hinata kept a neutral smile. I'm his best friend. I want to make sure that he's fine, she then added. I know his secret, so even if you take off his mask, I won't be surprised. Sasuke scowled, and Karin looked confused. I know that that mask is more than a mask. It obscured everything about him, even his chakra. Still, shouldn't I, as his family, know, so that if anything like this happened again, I can cover for him? Sasuke glared at Jiraiya. I'm his teammate. I have seen it, and I'm not leaving. I have the same reason as Karin to stay here and find out more. Jiraiya, sensing that he won't be able to chase any of them out, grumbled and opened Naruto's kimono. He stared at the seal and rubbed his chin. Interesting seal matrix. Must be an original by Naruto to completely lock away the chakra. But this is too tight for him. He carefully scratched at the corner and slowly peeled away the seal. There was a fluctuating pulse of chakra before the mask broke, unsealing his chakra completely. Immediately, the seal that Naruto had plastered all over his room glowed, activating to suppress so that he won't raise any alarm in Konoha. His fox parts appeared, and he breathed easier. His hair glowed a little from the immense chakra circulating within him. The seal that Minato left on his abdomen flashed a little before disappearing. Naruto shifted, his face grimacing a little. His extremities felt like pins and needles as Minato's chakra once again flowed out from the seal and balanced the yin-yang chakra inside him. His toes curled in discomfort as he slowly came around. He opened his eyes and saw Hinata on his right. Her eyes looked glad, and he couldn't stop his lips from curling as he purred, his voice thick from sleep. Hey, Haim. Sheesh, Naruto. She's the only one you noticed? I'm right here, you know. Naruto hummed, turning away from Jiraiya completely, mumbling loud enough. I'd rather look at Haim than seeing your toad face in my dream. He yawned, curling up so tired. Jiraiya scoffed at the silly sight. He then noticed that Karin was blinking her eyes as if she had just been flash-bombed. Sasuke was staring at Naruto's tails, slightly in awe and disbelief at the sight of the limbs that shouldn't be on any human's ass. Hinata, on the other hand, only reached out and scratched Naruto's ears like she would Akamaru with a fond smile on her lips. Jiraiya blinked at that. Leave it to Minato's son to snatch the heart of a princess. Sure, she's not really royalty, but the Hyuga was the equivalent of nobles in Konoha, especially when one considered that some nobles married their daughters and sons to the Hyuga as payment for their services. It didn't happen often, but it happened. Still, it seemed that Hinata didn't mind Naruto's Bijuu appearance at all. If anything, she seemed happy to see him like this. Brat better not break her heart. Jiraiya stood up and messed around in Naruto's little kitchen. At least he kept some 𝐸 and a good batch of jasmine tea. There was also a few other tea types, but Jiraiya decided that a Sakura tea would suit his taste bud for the day. At least Naruto wasn't bland with only green tea this and green tea that. The time he left Naruto with a tea farm owner really opened that boy's eyes to the realm of tea flavors. Jiraiya steeped a pot and looked around for different snacks besides 𝐸. There were udon noodles and the fright with some tofu skin. Typical kitsune. He was obsessed with inarizushi and inari udon. He then found a packet of unopened shrimp cracker. Grinning, he pulled that one out and started to heat up some oil to fry it. What are you doing? Jiraiya looked to see Sasuke glaring at him suspiciously. He sweated, wondering what was it about him that made most kids around Naruto look at him with suspicion. He didn't even dress like Kakashi. Now that boy deserved being looked at as a weirdo. On a rooftop somewhere outside Konoha, Kakashi sneezed. He then cursed, having to change his mask. Jiraiya sighed. What do you think? I'm helping myself to the snacks. There was some soft cooing. So soft, isn't it? His ears are so fluffy. Man, I wished he didn't have to hide himself so much. These tails are probably the most luxurious fur I have ever pet. Sasuke scowled and turned to Naruto. He then knelt near one tail before carefully stroking it. His scowl faded as he started to earnestly stroke the tail. Jiraiya snorted and left them to it. Knowing Naruto, this will probably be the only time they get to pet his tails. Even Naruto would sometimes hug his giant tail in his sleep. Unfortunately for Jiraiya, If he snuck a pet when the boy was asleep, there will be hell to pay when he woke up. Dirty pervert. I don't want my tail to stink of you and those women you entertain. No, Jiraiya though, he didn't feel hurt by that. Not at all. And no, he wasn't jealous of the kids. There was a knock on the door and Sasuke peeked out. Seeing Sakura with a get-well basket, he opened the door. She timidly greeted and saw Hinata and Karin playing with Naruto's fluffy tails. Needless to say, she handed Jiraiya the basket of fruits wordlessly and quickly joined the girls. Jiraiya only blinked and wondered if all Team 7 knew now. Then again, Sakura was with Sasuke and Naruto when they confronted the 𝐈𝐵. They were lucky that Naruto have 9 tails and not just the one giant one that he liked using. Everyone grabbed a tail and started petting him like a cat. Well, Hinata was poking at his whiskers, her eyes full of interest. When she stroked the lines, there was a loud purr vibrating through the house, causing them to pause. Jiraiya sipped as Hinata started petting his cheek with earnest, her own cheeks red and her smile a little strange. It seemed that someone was a closet pervert. Naruto groaned a little as Minato's voice echoed within. Up! Wake up! You need to wake up, Naruto! Naruto-chan. The yondaime sighed. Honestly, I know it feels good to have someone rub your whiskers, but seriously, you need to wake up or your tail will start balding. Naruto gasped, no, my tails can't go bald. He moved up and his head smacked against Hinata's. Lip to lip, her eyes widened along with his. Her lips felt so soft, and he almost couldn't stop himself from fully kissing her. Instead, he leaped away and landed on his ceiling, his face red. It was then did he notice Karin and his teammates looking at him. Sakura pouted, and I was just started to really get into it too. Karin grinned, looking goofy, so soft. It was then this he realized that his tails were out. He looked at it in betrayal. He can smell their hands on his tails. He whimpered when it dawned on him that his mask was off. He slumped, a weird posture of despair, oars made upside down by the ceiling. It's over. I can't marry anymore. My tails are tainted now. Sasuke looked shocked. What? Touching your tail is like touching a girl's body. Karin blushed. I know we are distant, Naruto, but I'm still your cousin and this is just awkward, you know? Besides, there is someone else, an accidental comedian that she was slowly growing more and more fond of. It might just be a crush at the moment, but she really wanted to get to know him. Also, she had never been in a clan culture of marrying cousins, so she wasn't so sure about it. Sakura looked at Sasuke, fretting, Sorry, Naruto, I can't. Hinata answered, I'll take care of you. They looked to her in shock. Her face was red, but she looked like she was ready for war, repeating, I'll take responsibility. I'll figure out something with Ōtō-sama. She'll threaten him if she have to. She knew all his weaknesses. Jiraiya choked on his tea. Did that girl just outright proposed? Minato sighed. Naruto, you're too sensitive about your tails. Besides, you should wash up. The smell will disappear. And don't you dare make a girl take responsibility over you. You're the man. You should be the one taking responsibility. He grumbled with a disappointed huff. I raised you better than this, young man. Naruto blushed. Ano Hinata. That's okay. I over-exaggerate, Databeo. A quick wash and the scent will disappear. Just don't touch my tails anymore, okay? That said, he disappeared into his bathroom. Behind him, the trio sighed in relief. Each with their own thought about Naruto's reaction to having his tails rubbed. Sasuke rubbed his chest. That almost gave me a heart attack, Sakura nodded. But I really can't touch it anymore? Karin pouted. Bummer. Hinata deflated in the corner, pouting. Naruto-kun said no. They looked at her, sweating at the sight of the Hyuga heiress growing mushrooms in the corner, looking forlorn like she had just been rejected. Well, she was, but it wasn't like they were ready for marriage anyway. Still, Sakura and Karin felt bad for her. She didn't stutter at all when she proposed, so it must have taken a lot of her mental willpower to say that. Meanwhile, Naruto was finally scrubbing his body of the last few days build up. He pulled out a stool to focus on his tails. He hated it when people touch his tails. Although he didn't send Hinata on his fur at all, he then remembered her location when he woke up. By his head, he pulled one towering ear down and sniffed. His tails fluffed up and his pupils blown wide open. He blinked and gulped. To wash his hair or not? Wash it. Naruto's shoulders slumped down, pouting. Naruto, your hair is oily. And who knows what else? Wash it, he grumbled. Fine. The downside of having a parent stuck inside him constantly was that he can't get away with anything at all. Naruto shuddered the days ahead when his puberty kicked his teenage hormone on overdrive. He had seen them around, and he had heard them talk about wet dreams and masturbation. Hell, Jiraiya had sat him down and gave him the talk after he stumbled on a customer having sex with a night worker when traveling with Jiraiya, who have a spy contact that managed a body shop. Minato had not gone on a curse rant as long and colorful as he did that night since, teaching Naruto all sorts of new words that he was forbidden from repeating ever, or he'll end up in lecture hell. It was hell because there was no running away from it or ignoring it. Minato will just repeat it if he did. After he finished showering and almost depleting his home-made conditioner for his hair and tail, Naruto took his time drying up. Wearing his pants, he threw his wet towels into the dryer and walked out to the scent of inari udon. He looked to the side to see Jiraiya teaching Hinata his recipe that he learned from Min. Hinata looked up and blushed at the sight of his bare torso. Naruto might be 12 going on 13, but he was fit, as a shinobi should. That meant that he have a well-defined torso that would put most civilian adults to shame. He flicked his still damp tail and went to his closet to find more towels. He really should dry the ones in the dryer. He was running out of towels. The downside of having so much hair and fur was the inconvenience after bathing. Taking out his grooming kit, he started to work on his now giant squirrel tail. He ignored the envious looks sent his way by his teammates and Karin as he worked out the kink. Hinata soon joined and placed a small table of udon before him. Food's ready, Naruto-kun. The manner in which she addressed him and the expression she wore, so demure and submissive around him, made Naruto a little uncomfortable, especially when combined with her almost proposal, because what else can it be? Still, he had a long discussion with Minato after the confession at Yakiniku-Q. His position and hers would make things difficult. If they really want to be together, then they will have to plan for it. The scent of inari udon caused his stomach to growl, and he ended up abandoning his tail for food. He sniffed the broth and licked his lips. He can already tell that it was going to be good. Also, the scent implied that Hinata was in charge of the cooking. He could not send Jiraiya on his food at all. This meant that Jiraiya only taught Hinata how to make his food. He grinned at her, his eyes squinting. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Hinata blushed, ducking her head and tapping her pointers together. Why, you're welcome. She then looked at the others. I'm sorry. I don't know if I should make any for you three. This is Naruto-kun's ingredients. Jiraiya placed a bowl of shrimp crackers before them. Here. Knock yourself out. He sat down, cramping the space before the telly even further. All right, now these lots knew how you look now. So, are you Dash? Naruto cut him off. Nope. I'm still wearing my mask. Karin frowned. But why? You're cute like this. Hinata furiously nodded in agreement. He blushed at that before sighing. It's for public peace. You know Konoha's relationship with all things foxes. They are already glaring at me for wearing the images of Fox. Now imagine the riot that will happen if I reveal that I'm the Kyuubi. Sure, I'm not the one that attacked the village. Neither was the one sealed inside him. But people are weird like that, you know? Give a few loud voices a chance to hate, and the rest will follow. Especially if the sentiments align. Who I really am won't matter. At the end of the day, people are illogical and will follow what they feel over what was right more, Databeo. The group frowned. Naruto was right on all accounts. There was nothing they can do against a whole community. Especially since it wasn't just the older civilians that reacted badly to Naruto wearing a kitsune mask, but also other shinobi. Though they weren't hostile, they ignored Naruto and treated him coldly under the guise of being professional. In fact, Sasuke and Sakura recalled that Naruto rarely interact with the locals. Anything to do with shinobi work, he left it to Kakashi to interact. Suddenly, his polite distance made sense. He was just saving himself from being hurt. Karin then asked, then how did Hinata know? Naruto blinked before looking at her. How did you? She blushed. And you visit Irika-sensei before you leave. My Byakugan grew stronger, and I accidentally saw under your D disguise. I never said anything, because why you were hiding. I didn't want you to hate me. She timidly looked at him. I'm sorry. Naruto gulped. You saw, and You're not scared?" She shook her head. Naruto didn't know why, but he felt relieved, as if an odd tension that was there was just gone. He realized then that he didn't know how to show himself to Hinata, subconsciously worrying how she would react. He blinked back tears and smiled. "I see. Thank you," Jiraiya added. He said all that, but in reality, he just didn't want people to play with his tails. He pouted. "Won't let me play with his tails. We have been traveling together for years now." Naruto dryly answered. "That would be because you stink of women and cigarettes. Sometimes you stink of aphrodisiac incense. Why would I let you touch me? You pervert." Jiraiya slumped. "I can't help it," he then declared. "I am Jiraiya the Gallant, the ultimate super pervert." Karin and Sakura immediately scooted away from him with a disgusted expression, causing Sasuke to move to the side of Naruto's giant cat bed. Hinata scooted closer to Naruto. When her fingers brushed against his still damp tail, she asked, "See, can I brush your tail?" Naruto absent-mindedly handed her his grooming kit. "Here." She cheerfully went to work on his tails as he glared at Jiraiya. The man noticed the two girls' reaction and suspicious glare. He sputtered, But I am also the rare gentleman pervert. I don't touch girls under 20. Sasuke mumbled. "Pedo." Jiraiya gawked. "Hey, I said I don't touch anyone under 20. Sakura said, "That is still young enough to be your daughter, isn't it?" Jiraiya defended himself. "I'm 50. I'm still young," the trio argued. "That means you are still old enough to be a 20 years old father." Jiraiya cursed. "Damn it. Stop reminding me my age. We should remind you more often then. Maybe that will treat your perversion." "No." While Jiraiya argued that a 20 years old was already legal for him to play around with. Doubtful, Minato took notice that Naruto was completely relaxed in their presence. Also, he just allowed Hinata to groom him. Instinctually, he treated her like his mate. He didn't even notice this. Minato sighed, wondering how he will live his life now that his team and his cousin know. I hope you guys liked the story. If you did, click on any of the videos which are popping on the screen right now. I promise you'll love them too. If you like my videos, you can like and subscribe too. I'll see you on another amazing What If video, guys. Love you all. Peace.